Chapter 313. If we were to use the saying of the game in his previous life, Jun Dashao's attack power was really too trashy. The opponent was already in a state of naked state, with a huge negative status, but Jun Dashao just couldn't break through his defense, no matter how frequent and intensive the attack was. And this was under the situation where the opponent couldn't gather his chi. This matter really couldn't be explained clearly, it was really too embarrassing. Therefore, Jun Dashao didn't dare to relax a bit, although the attack was intensive, but in his heart, he knew that if he couldn't kill the person in front of him in one blow, as long as he gave the opponent a little chance to react, he would face the situation where he would be at a disadvantage or even be turned around. After all, he only had Yu Xian at most, and the opponent was Tian Xian, a real Tian Xian realm. Even if the opponent only had 1/10 of his power left, he would still suffer greatly. Therefore, Jun Moxie kept on banging, his fists, knees, elbows, feet, and even heels were already sore from the recoil, but he still refused to relax, and didn't dare to relax, so it seemed that the attack was getting more and more intensive. Such a one-sided battle, in the eyes of outsiders, completely changed the flavor of the battle. In the eyes of outsiders, he could obviously kill the opponent in one blow, but he insisted on using such cruel methods to torture the opponent. It was simply a crime that took pleasure in torturing others. This was simply the legendary torture killing. Moreover, in order to shock the audience, Jun Moxie further dispelled the opponent's momentum. The chi that he displayed was sky blue, the color of Tian Xian peak level chi. As an expert at the peak of the Sky Xian realm, he was madly beating up a Sky Xian realm expert who was a few levels lower than him. Moreover, the other party wasn't even fighting back. Was there really a need to beat him up so relentlessly? I'll just settle it with one punch. Jun Dashao's cheeks were streaming with tears. Who wouldn't want to succeed in one strike? No matter how I thought about it, wasn't it because my strength wasn't enough? Fortunately, this wasn't a game world based on pure data. Even a Sky Xian expert had his limits. Jun Mo Xia continued to throw more than 300 punches at the same spot on his chest. This finally broke through the Xian Qi protecting his body, and destroyed his tyrannical physique that he was so proud of. Then, the last punch pierced through his heart, and severed his life. However, he didn't know that after he punched out his last punch, the image of him resting in exhaustion, in the eyes of others, was extremely pretentious, cruel, and perverted. Since you've already killed him, why are you still holding on to his corpse? Like a dried salted fish. Do you want to scare me to death, boss? It's so late at night, nearly 200 people looked at the hitman Jun in awe, and remained silent for a moment. It was too shocking. Too shocking. The other two Tian Xian experts looked at Jun Moxie with grief and indignation. They clenched their teeth and asked, "Who are you? Tell me your name if you have the guts. Our Blood Sword Hall will never forget the kindness you've bestowed upon us today. We will repay you in a matter of days." Huh? Repay? Don't tell me you still want to leave. Jun Moxie blinked in surprise. Your imagination is too rich, isn't it? When did I say that I'd let you go? Are you sure you're not dreaming? Are you talking in your sleep? Ha ha ha, we've been poisoned by you, and we've lost more than half of our strength. This is an indisputable fact. Today, we've indeed suffered a crushing defeat. But do you think that you and this bunch of trash and stinking bird eggs in front of you can trap us? Yes, you're a top expert of Tian Xian, and your strength is far superior to ours. But even with your ability, you can only stop one of us if we wholeheartedly want to leave. You're dreaming if you think you can stop all of us. So, the one who is really dreaming and talking in your sleep is you. The two blood-clothed Tian Xian experts laughed mournfully, and their cold words resounded, "I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. No matter who you are, or whether there's someone behind you, you and your forces are dead. The sweet dreams are gone, but the nightmares will continue to come. Only one of you can stay. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? If I couldn't make you stay, I wouldn't have come tonight. Dreaming? Let's see who's dreaming." Jun Moxie sneered and waved his hand. Kill. 200 people roared at the same time. Even those who were heavily injured ignored their injuries, and once again raised their swords and sabers, and rushed forward like a tide. Ha ha! The two Tianxian assassins laughed, and suddenly jumped up, one to the south and the other to the north. Their long bodies flew rapidly. Even if the abnormal leader in front of them had the cultivation of a peak Tianxian expert, he was only one person. How could he take down two experts of the same level who were heading in opposite directions? Jun Moxie snorted and laughed. He didn't even have the intention to move. He only shouted coldly, "Come down." Along with this shout, the sky seemed to have darkened along with this shout. The strong men on the ground scattered in all directions in an orderly manner, and quickly flashed out of the circle. The two blood-clothed assassins looked up, and couldn't help but feel their guts crack at the same time. In midair from all directions, dozens of giant nets with bright hooks covered the sky, covering the entire space within a radius of hundreds of feet. They were densely packed, and there was absolutely no gap between them. They looked in all directions, and found that there were no blind spots. Moreover, most of the nets were overlapping, and there was another one above one net. Even if one could barely break through the first net, there was still a second, or even a third. Just as the two Tianxian assassins were screaming in despair, 40 to 50 large nets fell down with a loud rumble, and trapped them inside. If they hadn't lost all of their strength, they might have been able to use all of their strength to break through these large nets in the blink of an eye. However, their strength had been greatly damaged, and even if they could struggle to break through, they would need a considerable amount of time to gather their strength. However, what they lacked the most right now was time. How could Jun Moxie give them enough time to counterattack? As soon as the order was given, more than 200 burly men threw down their swords and sabers and took out the thick wooden sticks that they had prepared beforehand. They aimed at the two unlucky fellows who were covered by dozens of layers of nets, and smashed them mercilessly. This was a great opportunity for a Gold Xian expert to trample on a Tian Xian expert, and they might not even come across it once in a lifetime. So, how could they let it go? Everyone had previously watched Jun Dashao trample on his opponents, and they weren't willing to let Jun Dashao take all the glory. So what if you're a Tian Xian expert? I'll still trample you to death. No, it'll be you. The sky-blue radiance of Xian Qi could still be vaguely seen through the layers upon layers of the net. It was obvious that these two Sky Xian experts were still struggling with their lives on the line. They were trying their best to turn the tide. However, the merciless reality was telling them that everything was useless. Wooden sticks that were almost as thick as a person's thighs landed heavily on the two meat eggs with great force. Their nightmares had truly arrived. The two Sky Xian experts had been reluctant to cry out in pain at first, but now, they were screaming with more joy than anything else. Their mournful cries pierced the night sky, and could be heard for several miles. It was as if they were owls. Their other Tian Xian companion had also died a miserable death, but he had died under the sneak attack of the young Master Jun, who was at the peak of Tian Xian. So, it could be said that he had died a glorious death, but what about the two of them? They were about to be trampled to death by a group of Gold Xian ants. How tragic was their life. Speaking of which, these two men were really unlucky. They had brought all of this misery upon themselves, and had nothing to do with anyone else. Jun Moxie had been very worried about these two men. Although they had been poisoned by the ecstasy fragrance, they were still Tian Xian experts. Their strength had regressed, but they were still at the Earth Xian level, or even higher. It was impossible for their Xian Qi to degenerate into nothingness. If they were to fight to the death, they would probably cause huge casualties to the 200 guards. Therefore, Jun Moxie had transformed his Xian Qi into the unique color of Tian Xian's peak in order to intimidate them. Sure enough, the two men's only choice was to escape immediately, and they had to escape separately. In fact, this wasn't surprising. The strength of these two men was only at the level of Tian Xian's primary level. Even if they were at their peak, they would still have to escape if they were to encounter a Tian Xian's peak. What's more, their Xian qi had dissipated by more than half. But when the two of them escaped, they fell right into Jun Mo's trap. He had already arranged for 54 men to hide in the trees, and each of them had 2 large nets in their hands. They had been waiting for this moment. Didn't they see that there were only 200 men? One must know that there were 254 men in total. This was equivalent to 54 skilled fishermen casting a large number of dense nets at the same time. These 2 men were flustered, and had nowhere to borrow strength from. So, how could they not fall into the trap? These 2 men were supposed to cause huge casualties to Jun Moxie's side, and they might not even be able to capture them. But, they had become fish in the net. Not only were they fish in the net, but they were also meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. The 200 men brandished their big sticks as if they didn't care for their lives. It was as if they were threshing soybeans after harvesting in the golden autumn. They were beating the nets happily. As the screams became softer and softer, there was no movement at all. Jun Moxie was afraid that it might be a trap, so he ordered them to continue hammering for the time it took for half an incense stick to burn. There was no other reason than the vigilance of an assassin. After hammering, Jun Dashao went forward to take a look. And the effect was very good. Even the large nets had been hammered into pieces. As for the inside, it seemed like it couldn't be considered as a human anymore. It couldn't even be considered as meat. It had turned into minced meat. 100% minced meat, even if it was stewed in a pressure cooker for a day, it wouldn't be able to stew to such a state. Jun Moxie squinted his eyes and went forward to take a look. He waved his hand and said, "Immediately clean up the battlefield. If it's an enemy, stab him if he's not dead yet. Take care of our own people. Carry the wounded away. Carefully clean up all the crossbows and arrows. Make sure there are no traces. Start the operation immediately." Everyone roared in agreement. Jun Moxie raised his head, and his eyes looked towards a certain direction in the forest. His eyes seemed to contain a meaningful smile. In a flash, the battlefield had been cleaned up. Jun Mo gave the order, and everyone mounted their horses at the same time. Then, the sound of hoofbeats rang out, and everyone disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Only flesh and blood were left on the ground. It was a complete mess. It was a testimony to this exceptionally bloody battle. Chapter 314. After a long time, blurg, 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 in the direction that Jun Moxie was looking at, there were 2 people vomiting their guts out. It seemed like they could even vomit out their intestines. Then, the sound of vomiting could be heard. It seemed like there were quite a number of people vomiting. "Old Pang, what should we do, blurg? What else can we do? Blurg, it's useless. Our problem is solved. Let's go back, blurg. Young Master's hidden strength is indeed astonishing, but his methods are really, blurg, cruel. My God, blurg, you shut up. Don't say any more. Blurg." A low and deep bird's cry could be heard. Dozens of people appeared from their hiding places. Almost all of them had pale faces, and the corners of their mouths were continuously dripping. It was obvious that any one of them had vomited quite heavily. It seemed that someone had taken the lead to issue an order. These people also quietly left. From the beginning to the end, they did not show themselves. It was as if they had never been there. The deep curtain of night quickly fell, covering all the sins and dispersing all the blood. Silence reigned in the Jun residence. It was already past midnight, but Grandpa Jun's study room was still brightly lit. Jun Moxie quietly brought his men home. When he saw the light, he suddenly became poetic and sang in his heart, "In the quiet night, the stars are shining." In front of Grandpa's window, the light is still on. He painstakingly wrote the teaching materials. His tall figure is reflected in my heart. Jun Dashao happily returned to his room and went to sleep. The two groups of men went to rest and recuperate. Apart from the 350 crossbows and 7,000 arrows, there was also 20 to 30,000 taels of shining white silver. Jun Mo Xia had generously divided the money between the 200 men. The injured would receive an extra 50 taels of silver. Everyone was happy. With the help of Jun Moxie's elixir, the injuries of the injured quickly recovered and were no longer a problem. Of course, only Jun Dashao could be so generous. Many of the people who were mobilized this time were injured. Among them, many suffered serious internal and external injuries. Some injuries were fatal. However, with Jun Dashao's various elixirs, no matter how serious their injuries were, they could recover in a short period of time. The emperor does not send hungry soldiers. Not only did he have the silver to trade with the merchants, Jun Moxie also gave the order for the hand crossbows to be given to each of his men, so that they could use them to attack the enemy and defend themselves. In any case, they were about to set off for the southern heaven region. As long as they reached the southern heaven region, they wouldn't have to worry about being discovered. Jun Dashao had just settled down when old Pang and his men quietly returned to the mansion. Their faces were pale and their lips were pale. Their footsteps were unsteady. In the study. "Master, you're finally back. I almost vomited to death." Old Pang gasped for breath. "What's wrong?" The old man was very puzzled. "It's the young master. His method was too cruel." "Ugh." Old Pang said as he felt nauseous again. "Cruel? What happened? Tell me in detail." The old man was even more puzzled. Old Pang was a veteran of the battlefield, and had been with him for decades. In fact, he had been on the battlefield longer than Jun Wu-yi. So, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was a veteran of hundreds of battles. So, what kind of cruelty hadn't he seen? But he had killed at least hundreds of people, and this was the most conservative count. What could have caused him to be like this? "Ugh." Old Pang said while retching. Finally, he said, "Master, I've seen people kill before. I've even killed many people myself. But, I've never seen someone beat a person to death like this." Then, my fist came out from the person's back and squeezed their heart. "I've never seen it before." As for the other two people, not to mention human form, they could even be made into dumplings. They didn't even need to be chopped. "Do you still need me to explain in detail?" "Ugh. Don't say any more. Hurry up and shut up." "Ugh." Before he could finish speaking, Grandpa Jun could already imagine the scene from before. He could not help but retch as well. Old Pang's evil plan had succeeded. He laughed mischievously and quickly left. Rather than vomiting alone, it was better to vomit in front of everyone. That way, it would be fair and reasonable. Grandpa Jun was a cut above the rest. After retching for a while, he regained his composure. He could not help but smile as he muttered to himself. "This little guy really gave me a lot of surprises. That kind of silent poison, really. I wonder how many trump cards this little guy has up his sleeves." However, there was another person in the Jun family who was very depressed. This person was the recently appointed general of the Southern Heaven City, Jun Wui. He personally led his men to the Ni Chang Pavilion in order to capture Lady Yu and kill her. After all, the crossbows had already arrived. The operation had already begun. Lady Yu's existence no longer had any meaning. This was Jun Moxie's plan. However, when he arrived there, he found out that there was nothing there. After asking around, he found out that Lady Yu and her subordinates had disappeared early in the morning. It was as if they had evaporated into thin air. There was no trace of them at all. Jun Wui was greatly disappointed. He had used Mount Tai to smash an egg. It was like using a stone to smash an egg. However, he had failed in the end, so depressed. Where did the news leak out? Jun Wui was puzzled no matter how he thought about it. June Moxie immediately summoned all the relevant people early the next morning. They would set off with the army in the afternoon. So, June Moxie was racing against time. Fatty, you must take good care of the aristocratic hall after I leave. You must take responsibility for me. Moreover, the pills that I gave you must be auctioned off at regular intervals. Do it in small batches. Also, pay attention to the confidentiality of your own information. As for the money from the auctions, don't hesitate to buy the high-grade medicinal ingredients that I've listed. As for the ordinary medicinal ingredients, you don't need to deliberately search for them. Moreover, don't search for medicinal ingredients like you did before. Otherwise, you'll attract ridicule. June Moxie gave Fatty a bottle of 100 antidotes pills, a bottle of mysterious yang pills, and a bottle of minor yin pills. He would use them to make exorbitant profits. As for the 10 years pill, he naturally wouldn't sell them. However, these 3 elixirs were enough to cause a sensation. Little Yang Mo, you don't need to get involved in the aristocratic hall's transactions. But, if the royal family comes to the aristocratic hall with a request, it doesn't matter if it's excessive or not. It doesn't matter if it's reasonable or not. After all, it's not convenient for Tang Yuan's status to deal with these things. Do you understand? But. The young boy was somewhat hesitant. No buts. It's settled. June Moxie decisively concluded, if you feel that you can't handle it, then go back and ask your father, Prince Equivalent. Well, it's settled. There's no need to talk about this anymore. Little Yang Mo went out with a heavy heart after the matter was settled. June Moxie then turned to Tang Yuan, the royal family's transactions will be handed over to Yang Mo. It doesn't matter if he suffers a loss. You don't need to care about the loss. Do you understand? I don't understand. Why? If someone from the royal family comes to look for trouble, then this little demon won't be able to handle it. So, he'll just accept his bad luck? Fatty Tang's face was full of complaints. He didn't understand June Moxie's decision. I don't need you to understand. I only need you to carry it out. June Moxie angrily glared at him. Prince Equivalent's family hadn't been present at the gifted scholars' autumn banquet in Tianxiang. However, he hadn't opposed June Moxie's provocation. It seemed as if everything was still. It had to be said that Prince Equivalent was able to keep his cool. However, this trick wouldn't work in front of June Moxie. You can keep your cool. Alright, then I'll add fuel to the fire. You're only thinking of taking out a few taels of silver to make money for this young master. How can it be so cheap? How can this young master take out money for you if I don't tie you to the same chariot as my June family? It's not very honorable to do this. It's despicable to use this to attack a child. But, this young master can make an emperor for you if you perform well. What's there to be dissatisfied with? Fatty didn't understand what he meant. However, he kept quiet out of fear when he saw June Moxie's anger. Even he didn't realize that his childhood friend, a debauchee, had such a powerful and domineering temperament. June Moxie turned to Song Shang, you're going to make some wine for our use. You don't need to make too much. Do you understand? Moreover, you're going to be in charge of the aristocratic hall's safety at night. You must ensure that nothing goes wrong. Understood, Master. Hai Chen Feng, you must forge the capital's underworld into an iron plate while I'm away. I don't care how much fighting power you have, but how much intelligence you can gather. Do you understand what I mean? For example, the beggars at the city gates, the scattered people on the streets, the bartenders at the restaurants, the pimps at the brothels, the guards at the gates of the aristocratic families, and so on. You must make full use of these people's latent power to dig out valuable information. Remember, intelligence is the most important. You can only consider the issue of fighting power after you've determined the route of the intelligence. Do you understand? A cold light flashed in June Moxie's eyes as he enunciated these words word by word. This also contained his main purpose for governing the underworld. Therefore, he needed to make Hai Chen-feng understand. I understand. Rest assured, young master. Hai Chen-feng, will certainly make the Tianxiang city's underworld an all-pervasive intelligence network. Hai Chen-feng replied solemnly as he understood Jun Moxie's meaning. Very good. The last and most important matter is the safety of the Jun family. Hai Chen-feng and Song Shang will be in charge of this. I will only say one thing, anything. There were no accidents. I won't allow it. I'm talking about any situation. Understand? Rest assured, young master. If anyone wants to deal with the Jun family, they'll have to do it over our dead bodies. Hai Chen-feng and Song Shang replied in unison. If that's the case, then I can rest assured. Jun Moxie nodded slightly and took out a porcelain bottle. There are 3 pills in this bottle. Take them together and it will increase your pure qi cultivation by 10 years. Tang Yuan, you can ask Hai Chen-feng to help you. Also, this matter is classified as top secret. No one is allowed to leak it. The 3 of them agreed in unison with a fanatical look in their eyes. To be able to increase 10 years of Xian qi cultivation in one go was an exceptionally miraculous matter. Even Fatty Tang, who didn't pay much attention to his martial prowess, was excited by this, not to mention Hai Chen-feng and Song Shang, the 2 Tian Xian experts. You can all disperse for the time being. Go about your own business. You don't need to come and see me off in the afternoon. Jun Mo waved his hand, and a strange look appeared in his eyes. If this trip goes smoothly, when we return, it will be, haha. He smiled meaningfully, but his eyes revealed a cold glint that was as sharp as a knife's edge. Everyone present couldn't help but tremble as they saw this. What was this young master planning in his heart? Why is this look so frightening? As the sun began to tilt to the west, the general's gathering drum in the middle of the drill ground began to rumble and shake the earth. Most military strategists would choose to go to war in the morning or at sunrise to take advantage of the auspicious meaning of the rising sun. However, this time, they chose to go to war in the afternoon, which was somewhat unusual. At the very least, the mood was not that good. The sun was about to set in the west, so how could it be good? But this was the decision of the Emperor of Tianxiang, so no one dared to question it. The autumn wind was biting cold, and the dead leaves were blown away at low altitude. Hundreds of flags in the drill ground were as red as blood, fluttering in the wind like waves in a sea of blood. Jun Wui was dressed in military attire and sat in a wheelchair as he slowly stepped onto the stage. Although he was sitting in a wheelchair, his sharp eyes and chiseled face still gave everyone a feeling that he could dominate the world. The blood general who had been silent for 10 years. Finally, he had returned to the army today. 10 years of hardship and 10 years of being disabled hadn't worn away this blood general's unyielding character. The moment he appeared on the platform, all the generals who had worked with him before were excited to find that the Jun Wui in front of them was still the blood general from 10 years ago. He was still like a treasured sword that could cut the heavens, radiating light in all directions. He was still as arrogant as ever, and could shake the world. In this seemingly broken body, there was still an earth-shattering, piercingly cold heroic spirit, and a fearless, deep fighting spirit. Once again, he would command thousands of troops. Once again, he would gallop on the battlefield, and display the heroic spirit of the Jun family's men. Suddenly, during the silence at the foot of the platform, a person shouted loudly, "Blood robes." Everyone shouted at the same time, "God of War." "Blood clothes." "God of War." The tsunami-like cheers continued for a long time. Jun Wui's back was exceptionally straight, and he expressionlessly looked at the neat troops below the platform. Wherever his eyes fell, there would be even more enthusiastic cheers. After a round of inspection, Jun Wui slowly raised his hands, and then dropped them down. The cheers around him suddenly came to an abrupt end, as if they had been cut by a knife. On the rough faces, pairs of fervent eyes looked at the idol in their hearts. In the arena of tens of millions of people, apart from the neighing of the warhorses and the flapping of the flags in the wind, there was no other sound. Brothers! My fellow comrades! Jun Wui slowly opened his mouth. His clear voice was issued with vigorous xian qi, and everyone in the field could hear it clearly. After 10 years, I, Jun Wui, am finally standing here again. Jun Wui's eyes slowly swept across the field, and he was solemn and solemn. I will once again fight side by side with my fellow brothers. I will once again stain my conqueror's robe with blood. Even though this time, we are facing mystical beasts that are far more ferocious and more terrifying than the enemy. But, after thousands of battles, we all came back alive. Facing an enemy that was 100 times stronger than us, we also came back victorious. Now, facing mystical beasts, facing these mystical beasts that don't know how to play any tricks, Jun-san, ask you, are you afraid? The last sentence gathered all of Jun Wui's strength, and it exploded like a bolt from the blue. A burst of heroic laughter came from the field. What a joke. We aren't even afraid of the enemy, so why should we be afraid of beasts? Jun Wui's cold eyes swept across the field. I will say it again, is anyone afraid? No. Tens of millions of people shouted at the same time, and every one of them shouted themselves hoarse. The strong roar set off a wave of air that shook the heaven and earth. Good. Whether facing the cunning enemy or the ferocious beasts. Whether facing the heaven and earth or the sky. I, Jun Wui, will give you a word of advice. Jun Wui's eyes were cold, and he suddenly roared, fight. Be fearless. Fight. Be fearless. Tens of thousands of people shouted at the same time, and the scene had already boiled up to the extreme. Jun Wui's words had also aroused the blood of the soldiers to the extreme. Dugu Wudi and the other generals of the kingdom were standing to the side, and their eyes revealed a fanatical look of envy and jealousy. Only the Jun family had been able to create such an exciting scene since the founding of the Tianxiang Empire until now. The Jun family had been silent for 10 years. But, such a situation had reappeared, and it was even more than it had been in the past. The men of the Jun family were fully deserving of the title of God of War. The iron-blooded fighting spirit. For a moment, all the generals in the military field had the same feeling in their hearts. To be able to obtain such an achievement, what regrets would there be in this life? Let the thousands of soldiers and horses boil with us. Life and death don't matter. Jun Wui moved his wheelchair amidst the tsunami-like cheers, and suddenly turned around. He cupped his fists. Your Majesty. This official, Jun Wui, is asking for my resignation. Approved. His Majesty's face turned red as he loudly gave his approval. Play the music. Send the Empire's heroes into battle. Dugu Zongheng took a step forward, and roared in a majestic voice. The drums of the expedition sounded like a raging tide, and with the greatest enthusiasm. 8 neatly dressed knights in bright armor rode out on 8 fine horses, and each held a large flag in their hands. The bitingly cold autumn wind blew the huge flag into the air, and it fluttered in the air. It was the color of blood, and there was a large golden character in the middle of the flag, Jun. All the veteran soldiers of the Tianxiang Empire had tears in their eyes. The Jun family's war flag. The flag that symbolized invincibility, the iron-blooded heroism, had finally appeared after 10 years. It had appeared once again. It was still as soul-stirring as ever. It was still as stirring as ever. The orderly sound of hoofbeats resounded, and a group of knights in bright armor came out in a line, and gradually formed a torrent of iron and steel, surging and galloping against the wind. Their swords pointed to the sky, and their swords pointed to the south. The heroes had fought 100 battles, and the warriors' blood had not yet turned cold. Chapter 3:15. Thank you, brothers, thank you, sisters. Today's first update has arrived. The second update will be slightly later. Tonight, we'll pull an all-nighter. On the second day of the army's departure, to be precise, it was midnight on the day of the army's departure. The emperor of the Tianxiang Empire finally received the long-awaited news. He knew that the Zhao family's men had been annihilated along with the Southern Trade Union's men, and the second prince's divine wind guards. This news wasn't unexpected for the emperor. After all, this was the only reasonable explanation. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a waste of the arrangements he had made? However, the news didn't stop there. The annihilation of the entire army wasn't limited to this. The blood sword sect's assassins who had participated in this operation had also died a violent death. A total of 3 Sky Xian experts, 15 Earth Xian high-level assassins, and 40 Jade Xian blood-clothed assassins had been completely annihilated. This news had brought about an exceptionally astonishing shock to them. How much strength would be needed to completely annihilate such a force? This wasn't a simple defeat, but a complete annihilation of the entire army. Not a single person had been spared. Moreover, the true core of this incident, the crossbow that several parties had been eagerly waiting for, had also disappeared without a trace. It was a super-killing weapon crafted from Xian beast tendons and well-tempered steel. The emperor slammed the table on the spot and smashed his cup. His gloomy face did not recover for a few days. Regardless of whether it was the hand crossbow or the strength of the bloodsword sect, they were all things that the emperor placed great importance on. He had never thought that the things that he had planned out so flawlessly and were so close to being in his hands would not be in his hands in the end. Moreover, he had lost nearly half of his elite fighting strength because of this. What made him the most angry was that there was no clue to this incident. He had suffered a loss, and he still didn't know who had done it. There wasn't even the slightest clue. How could the emperor of Tianxiang not be depressed? How could he not be angry? This depression and anger had caused the entire imperial palace to be covered in a gloomy fog. Everyone was trembling with fear and trepidation. They were afraid that they would accidentally anger the unhappy emperor. As for the instigator of this incident, the second prince, he had fainted when he heard the news. It wasn't an exaggeration at all. He had directly fainted. There was nothing wrong with fainting. This was because his losses were the greatest among all the participants. The price he had to pay was too great, so great that he couldn't bear it. After all, this batch of materials had been supplied by him. Moreover, they had been bought at the most reasonable price. In fact, it should be said that he had bought them at a sky-high price. Moreover, he had paid double the production cost. Moreover, he had used a large amount of manpower, material resources, and connections. In the end, not only had he lost everything, but his own divine wind guards had also been completely destroyed. After all, that was the most elite force under the command of the second prince. He had spent his entire fortune, but it was all for the benefit of others. The most infuriating thing was that he didn't even know who that other person was. If he didn't pass out, the second prince might not know how to react. Li Yuran was also depressed. The eldest young master Li hadn't lost as much as the second princes. But, the price he had paid was also considerable. In fact, it could be said that he had suffered a great loss. He had sent out half of the elite warriors that he had secretly trained. But, they had been completely annihilated. Moreover, one of his brothers had been turned into a pile of meat paste. But, the most depressing thing was that he didn't know who to look for revenge. Should he look for the Blood Sword sect? Should he look for an assassin's organization for revenge? His brain must have been flooded with water. Didn't he hear that the cold-blooded master Lei Wubei didn't even care about him? The eldest young master hadn't been so smart. He hadn't brought back the second young master's corpse. In fact, the eldest young master would have probably died there. 9 young masters and 1 young master had come to the Tianxiang city to help him a month and a half ago. But, 8 of them had already died. The remaining 2 had also become frightened by the mere twang of a bow. The eldest young master Li Yuran was extremely resentful. But another fire was added at this time. The eldest young master Li had taken control of a corner of the Tianxiang city's underground forces. But they had suffered a surprise attack that very night. And they had been forced to retreat. And they had been swallowed up by the Jinyang gang. The Jinyang gang had become the most powerful gang in the Tianxiang city. And they didn't have any competitors. The eldest young master Lei Jianhong and the third young master Feng Piaohong had fought against two Tianxian experts that very night. Their opponents were stronger than the eldest young master Lei Jianhong and the third young master Feng Piaohong. But the two young master Lei Wubei's disciples had lost their fighting spirit. They were flustered and didn't have the will to fight. In fact, they didn't have the calmness that a Tianxian expert should have. This had made Li Yuran very angry. The two young master Lei Wubei and the young master Lei Wubei had realized their problem. And they felt ashamed of themselves. So, they asked for Li Yuran's resignation. Then, they went to Tian Fa to look for their master, Lei Wubei, and discuss countermeasures. Li Yuran had readily agreed. She had given them a large sum of money as travel expenses. Then, she had politely escorted the two young master Lei Wubei out of the door. But, young master Yuran's face had turned gloomy after the two young master Lei Wubei had left. He had muttered a few curses. Then, he suddenly raised his foot, and kicked the door of his house into pieces. Ah, he has advanced to the level of a Yuxian expert. He is very powerful. That hard door has been smashed by a single kick. What a sharp kick. The Jinyang gang. Do you really think that I don't know that you're part of Jun Moxie's power? Li Yuran clenched her fists. The look in her eyes gradually calmed down. Then, she slowly loosened her fists. She then smiled gently. Jun Moxie isn't in the capital now. So, do you think that I can't deal with you? I have a way to deal with you. So, I can achieve my goal even if it's difficult to deal with you head-on. Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao's blood was boiling as they participated in the oath-taking ceremony. This was the first time that he had experienced the hot-bloodedness and heroism of a man in the army. However, Jun Dashao couldn't stand it after walking for half a day. There were too many rules in the army. He couldn't do this, and he couldn't do that. Jun Moxie later discovered that his third uncle didn't even know how to walk. And, he didn't even know how to speak. Jun Wui had been away from the army for more than 10 years. Now that he was in control of the army, his temperament was much better than before. He did everything swiftly and decisively. His face was cold, as if he didn't like anyone. Especially towards his nephew, Jun Moxie, and his group of fops, he was even more picky. No matter where they were not pleasing to his eyes. He scolded every single person he met, and scolded every pair he met. He made Jun Moxie, Murong Qianjun, Meng Haizhou, Meng Fei, Li Zhen, Li Feng, and the other young masters of Jun Dashao's families complain incessantly. Jun Moxie certainly knew that the third uncle needed to establish his authority in the army. He needed to establish his authority first. First, he needed to establish an image of strict discipline. Then, he would be able to follow orders and prohibitions. If military discipline was lax from the start, how could they fight a war? They would just be sent to their deaths. Since he needed to establish his authority, he needed a few unlucky scapegoats. Only by killing one to warn 100, killing the chicken to warn the monkey, and making an example out of others, could military discipline be enforced. However, Jun Moxie never expected that he would be the first unlucky one. This matter was very melodramatic. Jun Dashao, who had been on horseback for half the afternoon, had an urgent need to pee. He looked left and right. At this time, they had already left the city. On the left was a forest, and on the right was a field. Not far away, there were a few small villages. The army was advancing. How should he solve this? Of course, this was not a problem for Jun Dashao. He got off the horse and ran to a big tree by the side of the road. He untied his pants and peed to his heart's content. In front of him was a forest with tens of thousands of trees. Behind him, there were thousands of soldiers and horses advancing. Even the person at the edge of the advancing army behind him could reach out and grab a bird's egg. Therefore, this pee of Jun Dashao was very high-spirited. It felt really good. After the eruption, he quickly shook his pants. Just as he was about to pull up his pants, two hands suddenly landed on his shoulders. Leaving the formation without permission, ignoring military discipline, and peeing in public. You are a disgrace. Young general, please come with us. Two law enforcement officers suddenly appeared like heavenly soldiers and caught him red-handed. What, are you guys being reasonable? I clearly had my back to them. What do you mean by peeing in public? Jun Moxie argued. The two law enforcement officers were incorruptible. They grabbed him and left. Poor Jun Dashao didn't even have time to pull up his pants. His thing was still faintly discernible when he was caught under Jun Wui's banner. The result was that Jun Wui had performed a grand punishment for his son. He had given him 20 strokes of the stick. This punishment wasn't heavy, but it wasn't light either. However, no one pleaded for leniency. In fact, this wasn't surprising. Firstly, everyone knew that Jun Dashao was just putting on an act. Secondly, Jun Dashao wasn't very popular. Jun Dashao was a man who didn't easily cry. He raised his head and looked at Jun Wui. He clenched his teeth and said, "Third uncle, you really are an old man. Once you have power in your hands, you will do whatever you want. This nephew is so unlucky. I'm the first one, shut up. There are only subordinates of the general in the barracks." That's your third uncle. Whose nephew are you? Deputy General Jun, you have spoken rudely and disrupted military discipline. You will be punished with 10 strokes of the stick. Jun Wui's face was very serious. Jun Dashao was very sensible. He didn't dare to utter a word. He understood that if he were to speak up again, he would definitely be punished with more strokes of the stick. After 30 strokes of the stick, everyone kept quiet out of fear. Although the debauches Dashao rejoiced in his misfortune, they also kept quiet out of fear. The effect was still good. Jun Wui was aware of his nephew's ability. Don't be fooled by his red and swollen buttocks. It looked like his injuries weren't light. In fact, it wasn't a big deal. In fact, not to mention 30 strokes of the stick, even 300 strokes of the stick wouldn't be enough to injure him. However, he was going to use him as an example. At the same time, Jun Wui had another thought, this kid is too sloppy. That's not good. After all, the Jun family is a family of generals. This is a good opportunity to hone his temperament. This is to lay the foundation for him to lead an army in the future. This wasn't only Jun Wui's idea. It was also old man Jun's instruction before he left. This old man must ruthlessly train this kid. The third master Jun was prepared to abuse his nephew without the slightest scruple since he had the sword in his hand. However, he stirred up big trouble the first time. Jun Moxie covered his buttocks with his hands as he walked out of the tent in a resentful manner. He clenched his teeth and glared at everyone. Ah! Isn't this the all-powerful Jun family's third young master? What's with that expression? Don't tell me you ate the great commander's food? Ha ha ha. Master Jun's son Xiao, you looked so handsome when you covered your buttocks. This young master admires you. I concede defeat. Jun Moxie's rival in love when he was pursuing Princess Raimu, Murong Qian Jun of the Murong family spoke in a strange tone. His shoulders shook in an exaggerated manner. His throat deliberately emitted a strange laughter. This caused Meng Haizhou and the others to laugh along with him. Jun Moxie didn't speak. He slowly walked in front of Murong Qian Jun. Suddenly, he snatched a spear from a nearby soldier. Then, he used the spear as a stick and swung it at Murong Qianjun's face. His aura quickly drilled into Murong Qianjun's body. Jun Dashao had a belly full of evil fire. He had nowhere to vent it. But, you actually came to provoke him. Isn't this bad luck? This is what they call intolerable. At least, Jun Dashao wouldn't be able to tolerate it. How could Murong Qianjun have imagined that this fellow, who had just been punished for violating military discipline, would dare to attack his comrade in public? Caught off guard, he was immediately hit. Actually, even if he had been prepared, he wouldn't have been able to dodge it. He took a solid hit on the head. Immediately, his eyes shone with a golden light. It was as if a sky full of stars had appeared in front of him. The skulls produced by the Murong family were rather sturdy. The long spear immediately broke with a hakacha sound. Even though Murong Qianjun's skulls were sturdy, the quality of his forehead was even better. With a whoosh, a bright red lump immediately sprang up. It was as long as a finger and as thick as a chicken's egg. It stood upright like a unicorn's horn. Ah! Isn't this the distinguished and elegant young Master Murong? How come there's a bird on my forehead after I've disappeared for a while? Could it be that young Master Murong is so gifted that this thing doesn't grow in his crotch but on his forehead? What a pity, what a pity. It's a single egg. This kind of elegant appearance is enough to be unrivaled under the heavens. It's unprecedented. Truly admirable. Jun Moxie laughed heartily. He gestured to his head and no longer pretended to be lame. He casually tossed aside the broken spear and strode away. The spiritual energy he had released just now was just enough to ensure that Murong Qianjun's skin would not rupture after taking the hit. Instead, it would cause his skin to swell to the maximum extent. Thus, it had created this miraculous and astonishing effect. Everyone turned to look at Murong Qianjun's forehead and saw that there was a red mark on his forehead. It was standing straight up, and unexpectedly, it really did look like that one. What was even rarer was that other than the fact that the length of the mark was slightly lacking, even the thickness of the mark had reached a certain standard. It was extremely lifelike and lifelike. Chapter 316. Today's second update has arrived. Brothers who have time can wait for an hour or so. Tomorrow's first update will be posted. Those who don't have time can read it tomorrow. Cough cough, a cliché, begging for monthly votes. Ha ha ha. Everyone couldn't help but burst into laughter when they saw the comical scene before them. Even the debauches who had come with Murong Qianjun to ridicule Jun Moxie were laughing so hard that tears and snot flowed down their cheeks. They hugged their stomachs and twitched. The entire room was filled with men. In this day and age, most of them got married very early. So, everyone knew what that meant. Moreover, in the military life, this kind of dirty talk was very common. But young Master Jun's action was really unexpected and amusing. Even the old generals at the side couldn't help but open their mouths wide and laugh wildly. After laughing a few times, they felt that it was inappropriate and hurriedly held back, but they couldn't help it. In the end, they laughed unscrupulously with their bellies. The only one who was confused was Murong Qianjun. Murong Qianjun only felt an unbearable pain in his head. He didn't know that his head had been transformed. He couldn't help but angrily say, "Is it very funny? Beating up your fellow soldiers in the military camp is a heinous crime. This young master, this general will report this matter to the marshal and punish him severely." Hey! What are you laughing at? What's so funny? The horn on his head glowed bright red under the sunlight. It seemed to be growing in size. With his anger, the blood in his body surged, making him look even more ferocious. Even his handsome face had changed. He spoke with a serious face, but it created an even more comical effect. This time, the people who were about to restrain themselves no longer cared about their faces. They laughed loudly, and some even rolled on the ground while hugging their stomachs. "Oh, I'm dying of laughter. I can't take it anymore, please spare me, haha." Grand Marshal Jun Wui and the other generals had arrived after hearing the news. So, they became furious when they saw Murong Qian Jun's strange appearance. So, they wanted to laugh. But, they realized that they shouldn't laugh. So, they hastily held it in. But, they had held it in too quickly. And, their laughter had been too great. So, each and every one of them choked. Even the solemn Grand Marshal Jun wasn't an exception. Jun Dashao wasn't spared. He was punished once again. Jun Mo Xia was so angry that he almost wanted to imprison this guy. This was too much of a troublemaker, right? She was simply the legendary troublemaker. Moreover, the energy of the troublemaking sprite had clearly not been used up yet, because the whole thing was not over yet. That night, the two groups of people who had just set up camp had another conflict. The Murong family wanted to avenge their young master and had a conflict with Jun Moxie's 250 guards. Jun Moxie was helpless about this number. Even one more person would have been fine. But, after the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer teams rested, there were only 4 people who couldn't follow the team due to their heavy injuries. The others weren't seriously injured, so they naturally followed. So, Jun Dashao brought his 250 people to join the army. Whenever he had free time, Jun Moxie would feel gloomy. 250 people was fine. But, 250 people, including himself, was exactly 250 plus 1. Damn it, why was this young master so stupid? I could just grab one person and break their leg before coming out. But, that's not right. If I only break one person's leg, then wouldn't it be 250 plus myself? It looks like I'll have to break at least 2 people's legs. That's not right. Wouldn't that be 250 to 1? What a dilemma. The final result of the battle between the two sides was very shocking. These mere 200 people were actually ferocious to the extreme. They directly beat the 500 Murong family soldiers into a sorry state, causing them to complain incessantly. It was hard to describe how crippled they were. Because there were actually more than 10 people who had signs of being crippled. This caused public anger. The aristocratic families all criticized him, but Jun Moxie didn't budge an inch. It looked like another bloody conflict was about to occur. Jun Wui finally realized that his and grandfather Jun Mo Xia's previous plan was nothing more than a fantasy and conjecture. Jun Mo Xia's existence in the army was a complete black sheep, and a malignant tumor. It was best to get rid of him as soon as possible. If he stayed for too long, it would be hard to avoid letting this rat poop spoil a pot of good porridge. He had only come out in the afternoon. The day hadn't passed, the night hadn't arrived, and the sky hadn't darkened yet. This guy had actually been punished 3 times. He had even offended everyone that he could and couldn't offend. If he had really been punished according to military law, his head would have been chopped off at least twice. Take your idiot and get lost. Jun Wui said, in view of your performance, you are now given an important task to atone for your crimes with meritorious service. Jun Moxie will be the vanguard. He will open a path in the mountains, and build a bridge in the rivers. If there is any negligence that results in the loss of the army, you will be presented to me. Jun Moxie suddenly heard this order. It was as if he had been granted amnesty. He happily bowed with his hands clasped in front of him. Then, he used the tone of a petty person who had achieved success, and assumed the posture of someone who had received an order from a play. He appeared to be dignified, but in reality, he was extremely pretentious in a Peking opera. Yes, oh yes. Then, he made a half-circle with his hands, and took 2 steps in a slow and steady manner. Then, he turned into small and quick steps, and flew out of the tent in high spirits. He left behind a room full of old men staring at each other. They couldn't help but burst into laughter. This kid is the only 3rd-generation descendant of the Jun family. The direct descendant of the god of war's family? Marshal Jun Wui was at a loss. He could only think of 4 words in his mind: family's misfortune. Jun Dashao didn't care about his third uncle's gloominess. I've finally gotten rid of this shitty military life. I've been beaten up 3 times in less than half a day. And, I can't even fight back. I'll have to walk for at least a month to reach the southern heaven city if this continues. I won't die at that time, and I won't lose face. But, I'll definitely reach the pinnacle of the legendary Iron Buttocks. I'll be the vanguard. He. That means that from now on, I'll have the final say. I'm not proficient in opening a path in the mountains, and building a bridge in the rivers. But, I'll sweep away all the bandits and robbers along the way. I won't leave a single one alive. What a good training opportunity. Jun Moxie was afraid that Marshal Jun Wui would suddenly change his orders. So, he issued an order on the same night. And, the 250 men quickly broke camp. They were like a sharp arrow that pierced into the boundless night. And, just as Marshal Jun wished, the 250 plus 1 men disappeared without a trace. 2 days later, Jun Wui realized that his decision to send Jun Moxie as the vanguard was a brilliant one. It was a stroke of genius. Or perhaps, it was the legendary discerning eye for talent. Making the best use of people's talents. Using people to their fullest potential. There was no need to mention the smoothness of the journey. It was as if the army was on a sightseeing tour. They followed the path that Jun Moxie's vanguard had taken. There were no surprises or dangers along the way. Moreover, the officials along the way welcomed them from afar. It was as if they were afraid that their hospitality would be inadequate. As for the military supplies, they were given as gifts. There wasn't the slightest bit of embezzlement. As for the bandits and robbers along the way, Jun Dashao swept them away like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. He swept them away even more than 200 li away from the official road. This journey of the vanguard was a journey of exterminating bandits. The road was filled with blood. It was a road of blood. This was Jun Dashao's journey of tempering himself for the Heaven Destroyer and Soul Purification art. Not to mention Jun Moxie, even Jun Wui could imagine the scene of 250 men killing their way to the southern heaven city. What kind of fierce murderous aura would be nurtured? Murderous aura and blood were destined to be the soul of these 2 troops. The first county that Jun Wui led the army through was still okay. But when Jun Wui saw the county magistrate of the second county, it was as if he saw a resentful wife leaning against the door looking at her husband. When the county magistrate looked at Jun Wui, it was as if he saw his mother, no, his father. Tears and snot flowed down his face. It turned out that this guy's official status was slightly inferior. Coincidentally, when Jun Dashao came here, his butt was hurt by the saddle. Thus, this guy's good days had arrived. First of all, Jun Dashao decided to take a carriage. Moreover, it had to be a super luxurious one. Moreover, it had to be completed within 1 day. Moreover, it had to be completed within 2 hours. During this time, Jun Dashao had fully displayed his erudition from his previous life. He had helped the county magistrate to settle the old accounts of the past years. The county magistrate's methods could be considered excellent. He had cautiously gathered nearly 100 craftsmen from far and near. They had conscientiously built a super luxurious carriage in accordance with the strictest standards. They had followed the most comfortable design, and had worked at the fastest speed possible. The materials needed for this carriage had cleanly squandered the pitiful official's years of embezzlement. In fact, he had even incurred a considerable amount of debt. Finally, the construction of the carriage had been confirmed. The pitiful official had trembled with fear as he arrived in front of Jun Moxie to report. Jun Moxie had been using the account book as a fan at this time. Jun Moxie had been earnestly educating and advising the county magistrate. I say, Fei Zhu Chang ah. This guy's name was actually Fei Zhu Chang. Young Master June couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder for a long time when he'd first found out about it. The world was so big, and there were so many strange things in it. This guy's parents were definitely not ordinary. You're too unprofessional, aren't you? You've been the county magistrate for 5 years, and you've only raked in less than 50,000 taels of silver? That's really too lousy. Crap. You can't even be a corrupt official. No wonder you're almost 40 years old, but you're still a garbage county magistrate. 5 years of embezzlement, my God. You've given me a carriage, and it's gone. I heard that it wasn't enough, right? June Moxie shook his head and sighed. He felt sorry for the county magistrate's misfortune, and was angry at his incompetence. Chapter 317. On the 5th day of August, it erupted for the 3rd time. Today's outburst was the first update. Seeking monthly votes. Sigh, it said that 100,000 taels of silver can be earned in 3 years, but you only managed to earn 50,000 in the past 5 years. What a loser. June Moxie continued to sigh. You yourself said that there are 100,000 magistrates, but I'm just a county magistrate, and a county magistrate with only tens of thousands of people under my jurisdiction. Compared to a magistrate, there are several levels of difference. Fat Pig Sausage continued to mutter in his heart. However, he still maintained a respectful expression on his face as he listened to June Moxie's lecture. But it doesn't matter. Perhaps it's better to say that we learn from our mistakes. Now that the young master is here, you will know what to do. The young master will return from the Southern Heaven region in about 2 months. At that time, I'm afraid we won't be able to sit in this carriage anymore. In these 2 months, you have to seize the time to extort money. Hurry up and take bribes. When young master comes back, he still needs to hire a better carriage. You'd better be prepared. Don't be in such a hurry like this time. Opportunities are only given to those who are prepared. June Dashao said. Fat Pig Intestine fell to the ground and kowtowed as if he was pounding garlic with his head. Tears streamed down his face as he said, Young General, this lowly official will never dare to do it again. This lowly official will definitely repent and turn over a new leaf. This lowly official will repent and turn over a new leaf. Resolutely working for the welfare of the people, working with all one's heart, blood, sweat, and tears. This. You're so cultured. He could actually say so many idioms. Say a few more words. If you say a few more words, perhaps I will soften my heart and show mercy or something. June Moxie looked at him with a smile and praised him. Fat Pig Intestines kowtowed and prostrated himself on the ground. At this moment, he had already made a decision in his heart that he would rather die than change. As an official, it was better to be an honest official and a good official. You can't be a corrupt official. Brothers, you will know the pain of being a corrupt official after meeting this young general. He regretted it so much. This guy actually wanted to build another carriage after 2 months. I cried, my tears spilled in my heart. If she were to cry in front of him, she would probably lose her life. I must summon all the corrupt officials in the world. I must be an honest and upright official. I must serve the people. While June Dashao was plundering the place, the soul-devouring troops outside also came back. They were carrying a human head, and the blood was dripping on the lobby of the county government. The poor fatty intestine almost fainted out of fear. Damn, why are there so many of them? June Moxie's vanguard had eaten, drunk, and extorted enough. So, he patted his butt and left. Fat Pig Sausage raised his head and looked forward to June Wui's army. After all, June Moxie had said, if there's even the slightest mistake in the army's supplies, I'll immediately come back to make a carriage. As for the quality of the military supplies, it was up to Sir June Wui to decide. You should weigh the pros and cons. Therefore, Fat Pig Sausage's enthusiasm made June Wui's hair stand on end. What kind of person is this? As for June Moxie, the Great Vanguard, he continued to lead his 250+1 Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer army towards the south in high spirits. He didn't seem to have opened a path in the mountains or built a bridge in the rivers, but the entire way was filled with blood and carnage. Naturally, the strength of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops improved by leaps and bounds under his deliberate bloody training. Each of their temperaments became more and more murderous. Each of them was like a ferocious ghost from hell. Their sharp eyes and cruel aura clearly showed that they were a terrifying existence on the battlefield like a meat grinder. Of course, such an army could move at a very fast pace. Every day, there was only one team to complete the task of exterminating the bandits. They rotated like this. Moreover, the two teams also had to compete against each other. They were competing to see if there were any fish that slipped through the net. The punishment for the losing team was not very severe. In fact, it was very light. They only had to wash the other team's underwear for a day. This kind of competition directly caused the two teams to be like two strong men who had taken a double dose of aphrodisiac, seeing an old pig with double eyelids the moment they saw the bandits. They charged forward like wolves and tigers, chopping melons and vegetables. Punishment was not a problem. Face was more important. It was only the afternoon of the fourth day. Jun Moxie's troops had already opened up a distance of 400 kilometers between them and the main force. Jun Moxie sat leisurely in a carriage pulled by 6 large horses. This carriage was very spacious. It was 2 meters wide and 3.5 meters long. Not only was there a small bed, there was even a tea table and a bench. It was enough for Jun Moxie to hold a meeting in the carriage whenever he felt like it. However, Jun Moxie had only done this once, and it didn't last more than a quarter of an hour. Not for anything else, but this group of men who had been running for a whole day, even though they were wearing shoes, the smell on their feet was enough to make people tumble. Especially in such a sealed carriage. The smell was like a real salted fish that had just been fried. Just like that, Jun Dashao had to let it sit for a whole day before the smell was gone, reporting to young master, "In front, there is someone blocking the road." The one who spoke was the leader of the Spirit Devourer, Wang Dong. At this moment, this soul devourer leader, whose methods were rather brutal and could be said to have killed people like chickens, was actually stuttering. Blocking the road? Fuck. There is actually someone in Tianxiang Kingdom who dares to block this young master's road? Jun Moxie asked in surprise. He opened the curtain and jumped down. He wanted to see who this extremely daring brother was. As soon as he came out, Jun Moxie took a look and sucked in a breath of cold air. My goodness. No wonder Wang Dong stuttered. Actually, there wasn't anything too frightening in front of him. There were only 2 outstanding beauties in front of him. One of them was dressed in a purple robe. She looked extremely charming, innocent, and adorable. She was holding a snow-white leopard in her arms. The leopard blinked at Jun Moxie and stuck out its tongue. It seemed as if it wanted to throw itself into Jun Moxie's arms. The other was dressed in a snow-white robe. Her face was as cold as ice. She was cold and arrogant. She was a peerless beauty, graceful and graceful. At this moment, the 2 beauties were looking at Jun Moxie with a satisfied expression like a cat that had caught a mouse. The 2 ladies were Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi. Jun Moxie groaned, and felt like fainting. This was too shocking. No wonder he didn't see the 2 ladies pestering him during the 2 days before the expedition. He even thought that they had thought things through. It turned out that they had already left home. But now, they were waiting for him here. What to do? For the first time, Jun Dashao felt regret for being the vanguard. He was truly remorseful. Why did these 2 hot potatoes still fall into his hands in the end? When did I commit such a sin? Why did I have to be the vanguard? Wouldn't it be nice if I just obediently followed the troops forward? That way, the 3rd uncle would take care of everything. How would I have a chance to worry about it? Now, it was truly a situation where the heavens and earth did not respond to his cries. They were going to Tiannan City, not for a vacation. Jun Dashao didn't know what to say. What could he say? Jun Moxie couldn't help but look back. He really hoped that at this moment, Jun Wui would lead an army of 20,000 to descend from the sky like a heavenly army. Save the pitiful me from the fire and water. That was also an extravagant wish. The distance between them was at least 400 miles. He wouldn't be able to make it in time. Don't look anymore. It's useless to look anymore. We have already inquired about it. We came here especially to wait for you. Guan Qing Han looked at him indifferently. Now, you can get out of the carriage. Sister Xiaoyi and I will sit in the carriage. You can ride the horse. You don't have any objections, do you? Jun Moxie was speechless. It seemed like a friendly discussion. How could I have any objections? How could I dare to have any objections? What was tyrannical and overbearing? That was it. How could what I did to that fat pig intestine be compared to the former queen? She actually chased me out of the carriage. Isn't this the legendary dove occupying the magpie's nest? The members of the Spirit Devourer were secretly laughing. Jun Moxie glared at them. Immediately, the laughter stopped. Everyone looked straight ahead with a solemn expression on their faces. Cough. Cough cough. Jun Moxie cleared his throat. He was ready to use his silver tongue to persuade the two beauties who seemed to have made up their minds. I say, that, sister-in-law, and that. Miss Xiaoyi. Ah, elder brother Amos, yeah, are you pleasantly surprised to see me here? Are you surprised? Do you want to hug me? I know, I understand. I'm like this. Dugu Xiaoyi smiled and jumped in front of Jun Moxie. She then tilted her head and looked at him. She looked like Little White. She wanted to throw herself into his arms. But, the little girl was more reserved than Little White. Little White had already jumped over. But, Dugu Xiaoyi was probably waiting for Jun Dashao to take the initiative. Then, she would throw herself into his arms. Surprise? I'm horrified. As for the surprise, I don't feel that it's urgent to hug her. But, I want to fiercely spank her small buttocks. Jun Moxie glanced at it as he thought. Well, it doesn't seem small. It should feel good if I spank it twice. Jun Moxie's imagination ran wild for a while. Then, he suddenly thought of something. Why am I wasting time with these two girls at this time? I need to hurry up and drive them back. His complexion sank. Then, Jun Dashao spoke in a sanctimonious manner, Sister-in-law, Miss Dugu, you're worried about us. Mo Xia represents all the officers and men in the Southern Heaven City in gratitude. But, this journey to Tian Fa is a long one. There are many robbers and bandits. Jackals, wolves, tigers, and leopards are running amok. It's extremely dangerous. Besides, you two are single women. So, it's inconvenient for you to travel together. I'll send someone to send you back to Tianxiang City. Jun Moxie realized that these two girls hadn't even brought a personal maid when he mentioned the words single women. Do they think that this is a public holiday? We're going to war. You can try. I also want to know who dares to send us back. Guan Qing Han didn't care. Leng Leng looked at him. Brother Amo Xia, do you really have the heart to drive us back? We've already come all the way here. Dugu Xiaoyi didn't have as much confidence as Guan Qing Han. She looked at him pitifully. Her eyes turned red, and it seemed as if she was about to cry. Brother Amo Xia, this place is more than 1,000 miles away from Tianxiang City. It's such a long journey. If something happens to me and Sister Guan on the way, how can you bear it? Besides, the road is dangerous. It's hard to fathom a person's heart. Don't give me that crap. Tears are useless to me. Jun Moxie was indifferent. Now you know that the road is dangerous. It's hard to fathom a person's heart. You didn't think of it when you came out. Do you think this young master will believe such a lie? Do you really think I'm an idiot? Chapter 318. This girl's acting skill was really good, but how could June Moxie believe her? Don't be fooled by her pitiful appearance at this moment, it could turn into a domineering one the next moment. You've seen a ghost, so you're not afraid of the dark. June Moxie had experienced it several times. If he was fooled again, there would be no justice in this world. So, you really want to send us back? Dugu Xiaoyi suddenly widened her eyes. Although her pretty big eyes were still so charming when they were widened, she had already started to threaten him. The speed at which she changed her expression had obviously increased. Sisters, the only thing you can do by staying here is to cause trouble. Tell me, what can you two do? What can you do by staying here? Do you dare to kill people? June Moxie sneered disdainfully and said, go back obediently, and nothing will happen. Otherwise, don't blame me for tying you up like rice dumplings and sending you back. Don't think that I can't do that. You two will be the ones who will lose face. You dare. The little girl bared her teeth and revealed her ferocious look. Her true colors were finally revealed. Forget it, Xiaoyi. Don't beg him. This man doesn't have the slightest bit of sympathy. Guan Qinghan still stood there indifferently. She expressionlessly looked at June Moxie, but her words were directed at Dugu Xiaoyi, we'll go by ourselves. There's no need to follow him. Without him, haven't we traveled more than 1,400 miles by ourselves? Don't tell me we don't have a pair of legs. Can't we reach Tiannan with just the two of us? That's right. Why are you so arrogant? We'll go by ourselves. Dugu Xiaoyi raised her chin and said, isn't he just a deputy general? He's just someone who got in through connections. Humph, I've seen a lot of great generals, but none of them are as arrogant as you. When June Moxie saw the two women turn around and leave after saying a few sarcastic words, he became a little anxious. If he allowed them to go to Tiannan like this, even if they managed to reach there safely, he would definitely receive a good scolding when he returned. Grandpa June, the third uncle, old man Dugu, and the invincible Dugu wouldn't let him off. In fact, June Moxie could even guess what they would say. You're going to let these two weak women travel thousands of miles to the southern heaven city? How can you be so assured? What if something happened? Even if nothing happened, it wasn't like this. Stop him. Capture them all. June Moxie gritted his teeth and barked out an order. 7 or 8 members of the Spirit Devourer team moved quickly, rushing forward like wolves and tigers, blocking the path of the two girls like an iron tower. June Moxie harumphed twice. The two of you had better be obedient. As long as you follow my will, there will be benefits for you. Otherwise, at this point, June Dashao suddenly stopped talking. Why does his tone sound like that of a bully who has kidnapped women? June Moxie, I must go to the southern heaven city today. But I, Guan Qinghan, will do what I say if you force me to do so. I will die here, in front of you. Do you think I won't dare to do so? The look in Guan Qinghan's eyes was very complicated. But, she pulled out a glittering dagger, and placed it across her jade-like neck. June Moxie, do you know that I must go to the southern heaven city for you and the third uncle? I'm worried that the Shuehan Manor will make things difficult for you because of me. Why would I travel thousands of miles to the southern heaven city if I wasn't worried about the two of you? Do I look like a little girl who can't distinguish between the heavy and the heavy? You, June Moxie, are willing to disregard life and death for me. In fact, you don't even care about anything in order to protect my innocence. Do you think that I, Guan Qinghan, am an ungrateful woman who will watch you go deep into the tiger's den? Do you think that only you men are allowed to be righteous, and we women can only drag out an ignoble existence? It's fine if things go smoothly in the southern heaven city. But, why would I, Guan Qinghan, be stingy with my life? Dugu Xiaoyi didn't beat around the bush. But, she saw that Guan Qinghan's trick seemed to be working. So, she became arrogant and complacent as she said, yes. We'll die here if you don't ask us to go. Do you think we won't dare to do so? Humph, he. I've never seen someone who's about to commit suicide act so proudly. Eldest young Miss Guan's words were impassioned and passionate, but this little girl's words had directly changed the meaning of her words. In fact, she had even laughed at the end. I'm really speechless. June Moxie had a big headache at this time. Dugu Xiaoyi may wish to see the world in chaos. But, he could see from the calm look in Guan Qinghan's eyes that Guan Qinghan would do what she said. I'll soon see a corpse if I don't ask her to go. I can't take this gamble. I don't dare to take this gamble. You're ruthless. June Moxie stared at young Lady Guan. He then sighed with hatred. Jun Dashao was confident that he could make her retreat in the face of difficulties if he wanted to deal with this little girl. But, this sister-in-law of his had too much of a personality. So, he couldn't afford to provoke her. Jun Dashao felt extremely sullen in his heart. He had never felt so sullen in his 2 lives. So, he hatefully said, give them 2 horses. Let's ride them. That's more like it. Guan Qinghan cast a sidelong glance at him. Then, she finally smiled. She only wanted to go to Southern Heaven City. She didn't care about the treatment. She also understood that June Moxie was taking a huge risk by taking them along. Not to mention anything else, but in terms of military discipline, it was a taboo in the army to take a woman along in the midst of a battle. It could easily put one's life in danger. We want to ride the carriage. The little girl was young and inexperienced. So, she didn't realize this point. She was very happy when she saw that Jun Dashao had relented. But, she heard that Jun Dashao didn't have any intention of inviting them to the carriage. Instead, he had only arranged 2 horses for them. So, she immediately pouted and looked at him while panting with anger. Then, she looked at the extremely gorgeous carriage. She felt tired all over. Her waist, hip, and every other part of her body was aching. No way. It's already good enough that I'm willing to take you along. But, you still want to ride the carriage? June Moxie snorted disdainfully, it's up to you whether you want to go or not. If you don't want to go, I can arrange someone to send you back. Someone, give them 2 horses. Fine. Dugu Xiaoyi pointed at him in a flustered and exasperated manner. Suddenly, she rolled her eyes and pulled out her saber. Then, she placed it on her neck. If you don't let me ride the carriage, I'll die in front of you. Do you think I don't dare to? This little girl had seen that Guan Qinghan had threatened to kill herself, which had directly played a decisive role. Her previous imitation had also added fuel to the fire. It was very effective. Now that she had such a good move in her hands, how could she not use it? A good move was not afraid of being used repeatedly. As long as it worked, it was fine. Who knew that this time, as soon as she said, "Do you think I don't dare to?" there was suddenly a burst of uncontrollable laughter. Then, she looked at the grim faces of those men. Each and every one of them was shaking their shoulders. It was obvious that they were trying very hard to suppress their laughter. You can't blame these people for not having high moral standards. Even a clown wouldn't do such a thing. Young Lady Guan had said that she would die without any tricks. But, young Lady Dugu had imitated her once, and that was fine. But, she had done it again and again. This was truly inexcusable. Moreover, this time's excuse was too outrageous. Did she say that she would die because she didn't allow her to sit in the carriage? Then, you'll die too easily. Jun Moxie rolled his eyes, do as you please. But, Please die a little farther away. Out of sight, out of mind. Please, this request isn't too much to ask, right? Elder sister, even if you really want to threaten me with death, you should at least have the will to die in order to threaten me. Otherwise, wouldn't you be successful in every endeavor? I'll die if you don't let me ride the carriage. I'll die if you don't let me eat. I'll die if you don't let me beat you up. You're too hateful. Dugu Xiaoyi stamped her feet. She was at a loss for words. Then, she suddenly twisted her waist, and strode to the front of the carriage. She lifted the curtain, and entered the carriage. Then, she didn't come out. She called out from inside, "Elder sister Qing Han, come in quickly. It's so big inside. And, there's a bed. It's so comfortable, hee. Action is the most practical thing." Jun Dashao was furious. This is intolerable. Where will I go if you're inside? I've caught a corrupt official with great difficulty. I've extorted a carriage from him. I've put in so much effort. Do you think it's easy for me? Are you going to plagiarize the fruits of my labor? Humph. Jun Moxie strode forward like an arrow. He reached out and grabbed Dugu Xiaoyi's arm. "You, get down." "I won't get down. I won't get down. I want to ride the carriage." Dugu Xiaoyi's other hand quickly grabbed the inner wall of the carriage. She struggled with all her might. Her little face was flushed red, and she refused to let go. A white shadow flashed, and a fragrant wind drifted by. Guan Qing Han was already sitting in the carriage. She reached out and patted Jun Moxie's hand, and said angrily, snatching a carriage from a woman. "You're a young master from an aristocratic family." Jun Moxie said angrily, "What? I snatched a carriage from you? How can you say that? It's obviously you two women who snatched my carriage. Do you think this young master is going to suffer in silence? Today, do you know what it means to twist words and force logic, to be unreasonable and cunning?" Guan Qing Han no longer paid attention to him. She reached out and put down the curtain of the carriage. Following that, there was a rustling sound inside. It seemed that the two women were lying on the bed and had even undressed to sleep. He could clearly hear Dugu Xiaoyi's satisfied moan, "It's so comfortable. I can finally sleep peacefully." Jun Moxie's chest was filled with anger. He scolded himself for being an idiot. How could he lay out the facts and reason with a woman? If he wasn't an idiot, then what was? But now that his sister-in-law had already entered the carriage, no matter how unruly Jun Dashao was, he still had to avoid suspicion. No matter how unwilling he was, he had to get off the carriage. The procession continued to move forward. After walking for half a day, Jun Dashao finally swayed on the horse. Although this mount was also a strong horse, it was not as comfortable as staying in the carriage. He looked back with hatred. Suddenly, he frowned and came up with a plan. The next moment, Jun Dashao screamed. His head tilted and he fell from the horse. He fell to the ground with his eyes closed and was unconscious. All the guards panicked. But no one was a fool. They instantly understood what was going on. One by one, they cried out, "Not good. Young master has fainted. His injury hasn't healed yet." Their voices were very tragic. "Injury hasn't healed yet?" Young Master Jun was flabbergasted as he fainted. "When did I get injured?" "Well. But this reason is really good. I have to find a chance to praise and reward them later. They are really smart." "What happened?" Dugu Xiaoyi opened the curtain of the carriage and asked with concern. On the other side, Guan Qing Han looked at Jun Moxie who had fainted on the ground thoughtfully. Chapter 319. Young Master. Young Master was injured before. He can't ride a horse. That's why he got this carriage. The leader of the Spirit Devourer squad, Wang Dong, was sweating profusely, not from fear, but from suffocation. This guy had never made up a lie before, let alone this kind of unreliable lie. Finally, he was a bit quick-witted, and after thinking about how he violated military discipline, he finally made up this lie. Quick, 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 quickly carry the young master to the carriage and quickly examine him. A few members of the Spirit Devourer squad anxiously suggested. Don't look at them as a group of murderers, but it seemed that all of them had good acting skills. Dugu Xiaoyi hastily jumped down. Let me see, quickly let me see. Aya, quickly, quickly carry him to the carriage first, this person is really. Why didn't he say earlier that he was injured? Everyone was sweating profusely, and in a flurry, they lifted Jun Dashao's unconscious body and carried it to the carriage. In the carriage, Guan Qinghan wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say it. She shook her head and helplessly looked at the unconscious Jun Dashao. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She more or less understood her brother-in-law's character. Dugu Xiaoyi still stretched her head and anxiously asked, how did he get injured? When did he get injured? What kind of injury did he get? Is it serious? Do you have medicine? What medicine? Who injured him? The series of questions made these cold-blooded members of the Spirit Devourer squad flabbergasted, and they didn't know how to answer. The lie just now was barely able to cover up, but these probing questions weren't easy to answer. The young master breaking military discipline and being punished was even more shameful. Moreover, it seemed that the young master's injury had already healed, and he was already fine. Xiao Yi. Come in first, don't ask any more. Guan Qinghan's voice sounded, and the little girl shrunk her head in. Inside, they could hear her asking, Big Sister Qinghan, what should we do? What should we do? Aya, how did this guy get injured? This is so worrying. The members of the Soul Devourer team outside were all sweating profusely. Pfft. Guan Qinghan couldn't help but laugh. At this moment, Jun Moxie woke up and asked weakly, where am I? Before Guan Qinghan had time to speak, the little girl had already excitedly said, in the car, in the car. Oh, alas, you finally woke up. What kind of injury did you suffer? Hurry up and tell me how to treat it, I'll help you. Guan Qinghan rolled her eyes. This little girl was really naive. I'm injured. I was injured a while ago, but it's already healed. The reason why I'm so weak isn't because I was injured. I was poisoned. Young Master Jun whimpered as he secretly sniffed twice. Damn it, men and women are really different. I've been in the carriage for a few days, and there wasn't any fragrance. But these two travel-worn beauties had only entered the carriage for a short while, and the carriage was already filled with fragrance. Poisoned? Dugu Xiaoyi's eyes widened in shock. What poison? Is it very serious? Do you know what poison it is? Is it difficult to cure? Alas. I was careless and was poisoned by someone. Jun Moxie said with infinite regret, speaking of this, cough cough, it's a long story. I just need to rest for 2 days. Telling you, will only make things more difficult for you. You guys aren't willing to cure me, who said that? Why wouldn't we be willing? Quickly say it. Quickly say it, how do you cure me? Dugu Xiaoyi was anxious. Why is this person so unhappy? You're poisoned and you're still dawdling. Don't you know that I care about you? Cough cough, the poison I'm poisoned, is called yin-yang harmony powder. Jun Moxie raised his head sneakily, trying to observe the situation. He saw Guan Qinghan's fierce eyes and Leng Leng's cold stare. He couldn't help but be shocked and didn't continue speaking. Yin-yang harmony powder. Just hearing the 2 words yin-yang is scary enough. Tell me, how do you cure it? Dugu Xiaoyi was anxious like an ant on a hot pan. Her delicate little nose was actually sweating. This yin-yang harmony powder, it's difficult to cure, but it's easy to cure, hee hee, cough cough. Jun Moxie almost laughed sinisterly. He hurriedly coughed twice, because this poison can't be cured with medicine. It's easy to cure it, but it's quite difficult. Besides, it requires you to make a big sacrifice. It's okay. For you, no matter what sacrifice I have to make, I'm willing. The little girl patted her chest. Guan Qinghan, who was at the side, faintly felt that something was wrong with this matter. This guy was clearly pretending to faint. Xiaoyi, this little fool, was too worried and didn't see it. But now he wanted to use this as a pretext to create a bad idea. Alas, actually, it only requires, cough cough, intercourse between a man and a woman, and the poison will be cured. Jun Moxie seemed to be very embarrassed. He covered his mouth and coughed a few times. Otherwise, within 3 days, I'm bound to die from the fire of desire. Alas, I know it's very difficult for you. Forget it, it's my fate. Jun Dashao said very dejectedly. Ah. What? If I want to cure the poison, I have to, with you. Dugu Xiaoyi's eyes suddenly widened. Her face suddenly turned red, and she became bashful. Although she was young and pure, she still understood the word intercourse. Guan Qinghan, who was standing at the side, had certainly thought that her brother-in-law would definitely make trouble, but she had never thought that this guy was so lazy and shameless that he could actually make such a scene. Previously, when she heard the name Yin-Yang Harmony Powder, she felt that it was very strange. She felt that there was something wrong with it. However, Guan Qinghan was still a virgin and didn't understand the matters between a man and a woman. Moreover, she also underestimated the degree of shamelessness of Jun Moxie. She didn't expect this guy to be so outrageous. Letting him into the carriage was already exceptionally tolerant, and now he actually wanted to, Jun Moxie. Guan Qinghan's willowy eyebrows were raised, and her phoenix eyes were filled with killing intent. You bastard, have you had enough? Do you want me to drive you off again? Letting you into the carriage is already good enough. Don't be so ungrateful. Sister Qinghan. Don't be angry. He's still poisoned. That's a matter of life and death. Dugu Xiaoyi looked at Guan Qinghan worriedly and tried to persuade her. He's not injured at all, and he's not poisoned either. There's no such thing as yin-yang harmony powder. Guan Qinghan became even more furious. He was still fine when he was sitting in the carriage, but he fainted after riding on the horse. The people outside said that he was injured, but he said that he was poisoned. Sister Xiaoyi, when are you going to be deceived by him? Can't you wake up a little and use your little brain? Ah. Sister Qinghan, don't be angry. You mean, he's actually, pretending? He's not poison at all. Dugu Xiaoyi's face suddenly flushed red. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws in anger. Thinking that she really believed his words and was thinking about how to deceive Sister Qinghan so that she could detoxify his poison, Dugu Xiaoyi couldn't help but feel extremely embarrassed. In a split second, even her neck turned red. She buried her head into Guan Qinghan's bosom and shouted with her face covered, Sister Qinghan. I don't want to live anymore. She couldn't help but stomp her feet as she spoke. Ah, you're not really going to detoxify his poison, are you? Guan Qinghan was really cold. This little girl is too easy to fool, right? It seems that I remembered wrongly. So I'm not poisoned. Jun Moxie awkwardly coughed a few times and said softly. The two girls rolled their eyes at the same time. How can you remember wrongly? Jun Moxie slowly sat up and smiled as he said, the road is long, and the time is long. It's so boring. How about I tell you a story? The two girls stared at Jun Dashao in astonishment. They couldn't believe that there was someone in this world who could be so thick-skinned. His lies had been exposed, his treacherous schemes had been exposed, and his dirty intentions had been exposed. But this guy's face wasn't red, and he wasn't even out of breath. In fact, he didn't even have the slightest bit of an embarrassed expression on his face. In fact, he had even shamelessly said, "I'll tell you a story. Ease the awkward atmosphere." What kind of person is this? What's this person's face made of? Dugu Xiaoyi screamed as she threw herself at him, "I'll let you lie to me. I'll let you. You scoundrel, you scoundrel." Z. The days passed by, and Jun Dashao's life became more and more comfortable. Not to mention the plundering and extortion along the way, Jun Dashao had already made a huge windfall. He had the company of 2 beautiful women during the day and at night. The fragrant fragrance and the warm fragrance of soft jade made Jun Moxie so happy that he forgot about his duties. If it wasn't for the fact that his body's unlocking the heavens fortune automatically operated at all times, he would have probably thrown his cultivation to the back of his mind. However, Jun Dashao's art of unlocking the heavens fortune's bottleneck had loosened along the way. He would have broken through Yu Xian's mid-level Xian Qi, and would soon reach the peak of Yu Xian's Xian Qi. The Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops had been engaged in bloody battles almost every day along the way. Their imposing manner had become more and more solemn, and more than 200 people were showing signs of breaking through. When 250 people gathered together, their murderous aura was enough to make anyone's heart tremble in fear. Jun Dashao had hoped that this beautiful journey would last for a few more days. However, the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops had been dispatched less and less frequently. Therefore, Jun Dashao had come to a conclusion: the mountains in front of him were obviously steeper, the roads more dangerous, and the forests more dense. This should have been a paradise for the heroes of the underworld, but the number of bandits and robbers had unexpectedly decreased. It was only because they were getting closer to the Shui Han Manor that these petty bandits had naturally disappeared without a trace. "Young master, our destination is the Tian Fa forest in another 600 kilometers. The Shui Han Manor is located in a slightly more remote location, outside of Tian Fa, near the Tian Nan city. They occupy the 2 mountain ranges facing the Tian Fa forest." Wang Dong pointed as he reported to Jun Moxie. "Why are you so slow? We've been walking for so many days." Jun Moxie bent his fingers. "We've been walking for an entire month. Weren't you guys quite fast the last time?" "Young master, we were marching with light equipment. We didn't have as many misgivings as we did this time. Everything was based on speed. The last time we came and went, we spurred our horses at full speed. We traveled day and night. We could have traveled at least 1,300 kilometers in one day and one night. Moreover, we chose a different direction to go to the Tian Fa forest. There aren't many high-level Xian beasts there. Most of them are low-level Xian beasts that we can deal with. If we had gone in this direction, I'm afraid that none of our 300 people would have been able to come out. Moreover, we're following the main army this time. Although we're the vanguard, we can't be too far from the main army. We still have to suppress bandits along the way. This kind of speed is actually very fast," Wang Dong explained. Chapter 320. Today's 2 chapters are combined. My condition isn't good. I had a low fever, and my body temperature hovered between 36.8 and 37.5 degrees Celsius. My brain seemed to have turned into a pile of mush. I'm sorry, I've already taken the medicine. I just hope that I can sleep well tonight. I'll be better tomorrow. First, we'll find a place near a mountain and a river. We'll set up camp and wait for the main army to arrive. Then, we'll set off together," Jun Moxie ordered. They were about to arrive at the Shui Han Manor. Jun Moxie naturally didn't want to foolishly take the lead and look for trouble. Everyone should go together even if they were to suffer misfortune. Jun Dashao wanted to hide in the dark if the conditions allowed. After all, the Shui Han Manor wasn't a good place in Jun Dashao's mind. Even if the entire Shui Han Manor were to be wiped out, Jun Dashao wouldn't feel sad. Besides, this matter is out of anyone's control, but I'm the one who started it. Tian Fa's Xian Beast Tide is in some ways my team. So, we're at least allies. Wang Dong sent out 8 people to look for a suitable place to set up camp in 8 different directions. Finally, they found a suitable place. Jun Moxie, Guan Qinghan, and Dugu Xiaoyi went over to take a look. They immediately found it. It was a small hillside. There was an open space in front of the hillside. It was surrounded by dense woods. There was a bend in the road. They only needed to set up a spy here, and the situation would be clear at a glance. The sound of water coming from behind the hillside could be heard. They went around to take a look, and found that it was a small stream. It was winding down from the hillside. The water was so clear that the bottom could be seen. Not far downstream, after a turn, there was actually a clear pool. Dugu Xiaoyi and Guan Qinghan were excited to see this pool. Girls were naturally fastidious about cleanliness. During this period of trekking, the route they took was mostly military route, so there was no suitable opportunity for them to seriously clean themselves. Even if they occasionally came across a barren mountain inn for the night, they would at most have a simple bath. They could not be at home, where they would have a huge bucket of hot water and a fragrant bath. It was as satisfying as that. Dugu Xiaoyi felt itchy all over her body when she saw such a clear pool. Guan Qinghan also looked at the pool. She was also tempted. However, she was thinking a little more. She understood the character of her brother-in-law very well. It could be said that he wasn't very good. If she and little sister Xiaoyi were bathing here, he might really peek. No matter what, she had to think of a way to ensure that he wouldn't peek. Otherwise, wouldn't she die of embarrassment? When Jun Moxie saw this pool, he coughed in a dignified manner and turned his head away, pretending that he hadn't noticed it. Along the way, Jun Moxie and the others saw groups of Jianghu practitioners passing by them from time to time. They were all rushing to Tiannan to provide support. But, these comrades all had the same attitude towards Jun Moxie's troops. They either looked at them disdainfully or glanced at them from the corner of their eyes. It was obvious that the army had no place in the hearts of these Jianghu practitioners. Of course, Jun Moxie didn't care about them at all. But, the number of Jianghu practitioners they met became fewer and fewer these days. The road was rather deserted. Outside the forest was a 3-way road. It meandered into the distance. Every road was empty. There was no sign of human habitation. Looking up at the sky was especially blue even though it was far away from the city. While the 200 guards were setting up camp, Jun Moxie, Guan Qinghan, and the others came to the entrance of the valley to avoid the hot construction site. Jun Dashao and the 2 beauties weren't the only ones who came out to take a breather. There were 4 other people behind them. They were the captains and vice-captains of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer squadrons. Jun Moxie exhaled a long breath, feeling the emptiness of the surroundings, the silence of the sky, and the chirping of the cicadas in the forest. His mind was in a state of chaos, but at the same time, it seemed very calm. His thoughts seemed to be quite complicated, but also very simple. Finally, he could not help but feel a sense of loss. A moment of perplexity could be a fatal flaw for an assassin. Even a top-notch assassin like Jun Moxie was no exception. But at this moment, Jun Moxie was truly perplexed. Moreover, he was not perplexed for even a moment. It's been nearly half a year since I've transmigrated into this world. My soul doesn't belong to this world. I've been fighting every day, just like in my previous life. But, I've been using my mind a lot, and my hands and feet have been moving very little. I've been pretending to be crazy a lot. But, I've been using my iron blood methods a lot less. Almost half a year had passed in the blink of an eye. I've been immersed in these boring matters for a long time. So, I've come to this world. What have I come to do? Is it to dominate the world? Is it to be a marquis? Or is it to be free and unfettered for a lifetime? In the end, what is it for? Jun Moxie put his hands behind his back, and slowly walked forward. But, the eyes of the 6 people behind him were filled with astonishment. The Jun Moxie before her eyes had been swept away from his previous flirtatious, slippery, and debauchee appearance. His entire temperament had undergone a qualitative transformation. In fact, it could be said that he had become a transcendent hermit. Although she could clearly see that every step he took was on solid ground, but she could clearly feel that every step he took was strolling into another space and time. Another time, another space, all in a mysterious place that no one knew about. At this moment, everyone suddenly had an extremely mysterious and unfathomable feeling. This mysterious young master before them seemed as if he didn't belong to this world. Or perhaps, it should be said that he had never belonged to this world. This kind of peculiar feeling was obviously absurd to the extreme, but it was real. He walked step by step. But, it seemed as if everything in this world, including the people beside him, the soil under his feet, the trees on both sides, and the dust in the air, had nothing to do with him. Everything coexisted harmoniously. But, the only thing that didn't harmonize was that big living person in front of them. It seemed as if he was the only independent existence in this world. He didn't intertwine with anything, nor did he blend with anything. Jun Moxie, this person, was actually an independent little world. This feeling wasn't the loneliness of being at the top. Instead, it was detachment. And a desolate and boundless austere killing intent. Detached from everything in this world, yet able to intervene in it at any time. Heaven and earth don't have me, I don't exist in this world. Heaven and earth have me, I am in this world. Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi almost forgot to walk. They stared at the figure in front of them blankly. There was only one thought in their mind. Could this be his real face? After a long time, Dugu Xiaoyi couldn't help but want to go forward and talk to Jun Moxie. She suddenly felt a little afraid of this strange feeling of being away from Jun Moxie. But, Guan Qinghan hurriedly pulled her back to stop her from talking. Although Guan Qinghan didn't understand what Jun Moxie was doing at this moment, and why he was acting like this all of a sudden, Guan Qinghan still keenly felt that Jun Moxie couldn't be disturbed at this moment. Even the slightest sound could interrupt this transcendent abnormality. Jun Moxie suddenly let out a long sigh and stopped moving forward. He clasped his hands behind his back and looked up at the sky. The white clouds were leisurely drifting. He shook his head with a bitter smile and just stood there quietly. He only felt that his mind was empty, clear, and infinitely bright. No thoughts, not stagnant in the dust. His whole person seemed to suddenly return to reality from the illusion. Jun Moxie could clearly feel that his spiritual power had improved by leaps and bounds. But, he hadn't broken through the previous bottleneck. In fact, it seemed as if there was a layer of fog in front of his eyes. So, it was hazy and unclear. If he could break through this layer, his whole spiritual consciousness would definitely be greatly improved. And the source of this layer of obstruction, Jun Moxie could vaguely feel. It came from his heart. Moxie, just now, what were you thinking about? Guan Qinghan's voice was still so cold, but Jun Moxie could clearly hear that Guan Qinghan's voice had an extra touch of concern and care. Guan Qinghan was exceptionally intelligent. When she saw that Jun Moxie suddenly fell into this wonderful state, she felt that it seemed that Jun Moxie was about to make an unexpected breakthrough at a critical juncture. However, after he was immersed in this wonderful state for a period of time, he suddenly seemed like an immortal who was about to become an immortal who was suddenly beaten back to the mortal world by a stick. The difference between the two feelings was so obvious that she finally couldn't help but ask. I was just thinking. Jun Moxie's mind was still a little absent-minded, as if half of his foot was still stuck in that wonderful state. He said slowly, in this life, what do I want to do? Or rather, why did I come to this world? Or, what is my goal? What can I do? What can I do? Goal? Guan Qinghan hesitated. Shouldn't people have a goal when they are alive? She asked herself secretly, what about me? Why am I still alive? Where is my goal? Suddenly thinking of this, Guan Qinghan also felt a little lost. Brother-in-law should naturally have his goal, but do I still have the qualification to pursue any goal? Do I really have the qualification? Yes, we should have a goal. Everyone should have one. I used to have an idea, which was to use my own strength to return a clear sky to the world, to use slaughter and blood to clean up what I thought was a dirty world, to a certain extent, bring the world to the kind of peace and prosperity that I longed for. At least in my eyes, there shouldn't be so many injustices. June Moxie smiled bitterly. I never cared about what other people thought. I just stubbornly used my own way to do what I thought was right. I did things my own way. Although I knew that it was just a cup of water to fill the sea, I never changed my original intention. But, after coming here, I'm at a loss, truly at a loss. Guan Qinghan naturally didn't know what June Moxie meant by filling the sea, and she also didn't understand what June Moxie meant by coming here. But she could hear a strong sense of loneliness in June Moxie's heart. This actually made her heart, which was as calm as still water, feel a faint pain. It was like seeing a fighter who never gave up. After exhausting all his strength and all his ability, he suddenly found that the enemy in front of him was the whole world. He could never be defeated, or destroyed. It turned out that what he had persisted in his whole life was just like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, a mayfly trying to shake a tree. That kind of helplessness and desolate unwillingness couldn't be described with words. After pondering for a moment, Guan Qinghan comforted her in a soft voice. It's hard to say what one's life is all about. For us women, it's just a matter of supporting our husbands and educating our children. Day by day, year by year, no matter how old we get, we don't feel too disappointed. I believe that most women in this world are like this. Moreover, there are still countless women who feel happy and satisfied in this kind of dull but fixed life. As for you men, especially those who have power, strength, and ability, you are all striving for your own fame and glory. You are always fighting fiercely and fiercely. Even the most mediocre commoner will work hard to be a so-called superior person in their eyes for the sake of having a better life. While she was speaking, June Moxie had already turned around. His sparkling eyes were fixed on her, but there was no frivolity in his eyes, nor was there any of his usual amazement. There was only a very calm and deep look in his eyes, as if he was pondering something. In this feudal society, there weren't many women who could see so clearly like Guan Qinghan. This made June Moxie a little surprised. Actually, in this world, most men live too tirelessly. And, it's not really worth it. There was confusion in Guan Qinghan's eyes, but there was also determination and even a little disdain. It seemed that the so-called pursuit of men in this world wasn't worth mentioning in her eyes. Then, what do you think this world is for? Or, what should it be for? June Moxie said thoughtfully. I don't know what other people are for, and I don't have the qualifications to speak on behalf of others. But, I know myself. Guan Qinghan said slowly, but her eyes were shining brightly. I, Guan Qinghan, am only a weak woman. Moreover, the world makes fools of people. I'm afraid that I don't have the qualifications to serve my husband and children in this life. At this moment, I only seek peace of mind, and this life will be enough. Yes, I, Guan Qinghan, only seek peace of mind. That year, I was engaged to June Moxie for the sake of my family. Although I had never met him, I had no other choice for the sake of my family and my parents. Because, at that time, I was willing to do anything for my parents. Therefore, my heart was at peace. From the beginning to the end, I had only met June Moxie twice. Although I couldn't say that I had any feelings for him, but I knew that June Moxie was a man with iron bones. He was a great man. Moreover, I had already been engaged, so I had to accept my fate. Then, Jun Mou died in battle. But, I felt that such a good man was worth sacrificing for. Therefore, I was willing to sacrifice myself for Jun Mou, the hero of the empire. I was willing to live in the Jun family as a widow. On one hand, I wanted to leave my disheartened family. But, the most important reason was Jun Mou's heroic spirit. So, I, Guan Qinghan, felt that I would go against my conscience if I broke off the engagement. In fact, my choice wasn't wrong. I was alone at that time, and I was extremely lonely. But, my heart was at peace. This time, I didn't hesitate to go to Tianfa with my weak body in order for Jun Xia and his nephew to return safely to their homeland. I was prepared to take on any difficult task. I didn't hesitate to pay any price to ensure that Jun Xia and his nephew could return safely to the north. I was prepared to sacrifice myself for these two people. But, this was only a peace of mind. I didn't ask for anything else. That's all. The Jun family has treated me as a relative. If I were to watch Jun Wuyi and Jun Xia die because of me, then I, Guan Qinghan, would be worse than a beast. Moreover, there was another extremely secretive reason. Jun Xia seemed to be very affectionate towards her. She used to be as cold as ice and didn't care about it. But recently, she had been showing faint signs of losing control of her mind. Especially when Jun Xia had helped her to break through her limits and increase her Xian Qi cultivation. That faintly discernible skin-to-skin contact between the two of them had caused Guan Qinghan to have many nightmares. These recent events had greatly frightened Guan Qinghan. What if, therefore, it would be better to use this trip to Tianfa as an excuse to end all troubles once and for all. I'll sever all worldly disputes. I'll use my pure body to repay the Jun family's kindness. And, I'll also sever my brother-in-law's infatuation. My heart will be at peace once everything has been severed. The Jun family's style will not change. The Guan family's style will not be tainted. The two families' prestige will not fall. As for myself, I don't need to think about it. That's right. Well said. Well said. Ha ha ha. Jun Xia suddenly laughed like a madman. I only seek peace of mind. Who cares about right and wrong? Ha ha, people often say, I only seek peace of mind and righteousness. But, who would have thought that peace of mind and righteousness contradict each other? So, it doesn't matter whether I kill or save someone. I only seek peace of mind, and I won't disappoint this world of mortals. I, Jun Xia, have lived my life not for the country, not for the people. But, I've lived my life in peace. As long as everything is in accordance with my own heart, that's all. Why do I need to think so much? What country's prosperity and people's peace? What world affairs? That's all bullshit. In this life, I'll do things my own way. I'll be unscrupulous. I want to be free and unrestrained. No matter who it is, don't even think about controlling my thoughts. No matter who it is, don't even think about restricting my actions. What does it have to do with me? What does it have to do with me? With my own heart, I'll take revenge. With my own will, I'll roam the world. As long as I have a clear conscience, I'll be able to stand tall. This life is enough. Jun Xia laughed. Unintentionally, Guan Qinghan had untied the knot in his heart. He was very happy. Jun Dashao was happy on this side. On the other side, Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi were extremely shocked. Even the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer captains could clearly feel the change in Jun Xia. The Jun Xia in front of them seemed to have completed a shocking transformation in an instant. From a flamboyant and frivolous young master of an aristocratic family, he suddenly became a hermit expert. This kind of change was undoubtedly abrupt. However, there was an even more abrupt transformation after that. From a transcendent expert, he transformed into a cold and gloomy expert. At that moment, he was like a sharp sword that had just been unsheathed. He stood proudly between the heavens and the earth, as if he could reflect tens of thousands of rays of light. The world may be big, but it could no longer bind him. The inexplicable confusion in Jun Mo's heart was swept away. He only felt refreshed. Unknowingly, his state of mind had taken a big step forward. Perfect and transparent, not bound by material things. In this life, how can I be content with the status quo and sleep in Tianxiang? I'll roam the world with my sword. I'll look down on all the heroes in the world. I'll climb to the peak and ask who the hero is. I don't want to rule the world. But, no one in the world can point fingers at me. They can't deal with me. They can't deal with my family. My goal is finally clear. I want the Jun family to become an existence that far surpasses the Silver Blizzard City and the Shuehan Manor. I want to become the peak existence in this world. Even if it's an emperor, a general, or a peerless master, no one would dare to look me in the eye. And all of this will require the accumulation of countless blood. But, my heart is at peace. This is the direction I've been working towards. I have no regrets. The corners of Jun Mo's mouth curled into a cold smile as he softly said, my journey of slaughter will begin in the southern heaven city if that's the case. His body suddenly burst forth with an endless murderous aura. It spiraled in the air, and soared into the sky. This unparalleled aura stirred up the clothes of the 6 people around him. The withered leaves of late autumn were already struggling at death's door. But, they were forced to leave the branches by his murderous aura, and started to swirl down with the wind. It seemed as if an earth-shattering rain of yellow leaves had started to fall. Several small birds left the branches, and flapped their wings twice. But, they were invaded by the murderous aura, and started to cry mournfully as they fell to the ground. 3 figures were flying through the forest in the distance. But, they suddenly stopped, and looked towards this direction in a dignified manner. One of them said in a heavy tone, what a terrifying murderous aura. Who's over there? The 2 men beside him also had a cautious look on their faces as they looked towards this direction from afar. One of them said thoughtfully, could it be that Chu Chihuan has arrived? I don't think so. Chu Chihuan has such a murderous aura, but Chu Chihuan's aura is the sharpest and most concentrated. If it were Chu Chihuan, his aura would be indomitable, and it would only be in one direction. But, this person's murderous aura is earth-shattering. Comparing the 2, it's completely different. We can be sure that this person isn't Chu Chihuan. But, his murderous aura is not inferior to that of the supreme assassin, Chu Chihuan. In fact, it's even stronger. No matter who it is, let's go and take a look. Another man suggested, even if the supreme assassin, Chu Chihuan, is there, with the strength of the 3 of us, we may not be afraid of him. All right. The black-bearded middle-aged man thought for a while, and then agreed decisively. He said heroically, that's right. When have we, the 3 swords of Dongfang, been afraid of anyone? Even if Chu Chihuan is here, do you think we'll be afraid? That's right, big brother. I heard that the Jun family's 3rd master is the commander this time. Shouldn't you and I? A short and vigorous man muttered to himself. No. Mother hasn't been able to get over what happened that year. She was injured because of it, and her meridians were clogged. How could this have happened if it wasn't for the Jun family? Little sister has been in a deep sleep for 10 years. Her vitality is almost gone. What's the purpose of this? This time, Jun Wui can go back alive if he has the ability. If he doesn't, then he can die here. What does that have to do with us? The black-bearded middle-aged man said angrily. But, even if he does, that Jun Moxie is our nephew. He's our blood relative. Even mother had spoken out in the past. Are you still indifferent? the short middle-aged man asked in a somewhat unconvinced manner. What a sin. The black-bearded middle-aged man sighed and said resolutely, I obviously won't allow anything to happen to June Moxie. But, the June family's matter has nothing to do with us. I also know that June Wooey is a good man. But, my brother-in-law and my 2 nephews wouldn't have met with such an accident if it weren't for him. So, there's no need to talk about this anymore. Chapter 321. Big brother, how about we go to Tianxiang together after this matter in Tiannan City? The short man asked cautiously as he flew. What are we going to do? Are we going to look for trouble or to kill people? Which one of them isn't strenuous and unrewarding? Don't you remember the lesson from back then? The black-bearded middle-aged man rolled his eyes and reprimanded. No, I've never forgotten what happened back then. I'm just wondering if I should take that kid Moxie and let him stay with my little sister for a couple of days. I've heard that the kid isn't as tyrannical as he used to be. He's grown up a lot. My little sister, she's been in a coma for 10 years. The short man said with a distressed look on his face. This matter needs to be considered at length. How can I not feel distressed for my little sister? But, that kid Moxie's conduct is too bad. He did all those bad things in his early years. Also, the last time the old monkey went home, he reported to Mother about his nephew's conduct. Mother was always looking forward to seeing him. She was so angry that she almost fainted. Have you forgotten? If he weren't my nephew, I would have gotten rid of him. It's rumored that he's grown up. But, it's only a rumor. If the rumor is wrong, and that kid's conduct is even worse than the rumors say, then wouldn't Mother die of anger? Let's investigate in secret first. The black-bearded middle-aged man sighed. There was a dim look in his eyes. And, that's true. That kid is really too disappointing. My little sister's innate talent is outstanding. Brother-in-law Wu Hui is also a dragon among men. How can their descendants be so unbearable? But, let's take a look first. What if the prodigal son turns over a new leaf? Wouldn't that be a great joy? Moreover, it wasn't easy for us to come out this time. We have to do something before we go back. Big brother, the Silver Blizzard City will certainly send people over this time. How about we kill a few of them for fun? Killing those kids from the Silver Blizzard City is the best way to vent one's anger. The short man bared his teeth, and revealed a sinister smile. That's right. If there's a chance, there's no harm in killing a few of them for fun. The black-bearded middle-aged man nodded and warned, but we must not let anyone know that we did it. Of course. Killing a few arrogant kids from the Silver City would be the most pleasing thing in the world. This is to avenge brother-in-law, and also to vent anger for my sister. The other 2 laughed sinisterly. He rubbed his palms together and was filled with battle intent. Outside the forest, at a fork in the road. June Moxie, who was standing with his hands clasped behind his back, suddenly froze. His expression changed slightly before returning to normal. June Dashao's gaze focused in a certain direction. That was because there were 3 powerful auras rapidly approaching. Judging from the direction they were heading, their target seemed to be him. June Moxie narrowed his eyes, but his mind was in turmoil. Tianxiang City doesn't know how big the world is, and it doesn't know how picturesque the rivers and mountains are. Any one of these 3 auras possessed the strength of a spirit Xian expert. In fact, each of them was at the same level as the Silver Blizzard City's elders. However, this wasn't enough to cause the hitman June's expression to change. It was probably because these 3 people were faintly emitting an astonishing murderous aura. In fact, June Moxie wouldn't have been able to detect this aura if he hadn't been a top-notch assassin. In fact, the hitman June was certain that the 3rd, 6th, and 9th elders of the Silver Blizzard City would have died an ugly death if they were to face these 3 people. Such an expert would be hard to find in a place like Tianxiang City. But now, 3 of them had appeared in front of him. How would I have known that there were so many strange people in the world if I had only been holed up in the Tianxiang City? I've only just come out, and I've already seen so many wonderful people. It seems that I'll have to come out more often. Jun Dashao's thoughts moved as the 3 silhouettes appeared in front of him. They were led by a man with a black beard and a calm complexion. Another man had a moderate build, and was slightly thin. The last man was quite short, with a big head and small eyes. In fact, he looked like a big monkey. It was very comical. The 3 of them stared blankly as they landed on the ground. They had thought that some great person had arrived in this place when they had sensed that monstrous murderous aura. Therefore, they had rushed over to take a look. Perhaps they would be able to befriend this person. That murderous aura alone was enough to make them worth befriending. However, they had come to find that everything was beyond their expectations. There were only 3 young men and a young woman standing here. Moreover, there were 4 big men standing there. The cultivation of these people was clear at a glance. The 2 beautiful young women seemed to be at the middle level of the Gold Xian realm. Considering their age, they could be said to be rare geniuses. As for that young man, he was already as strong as Yu Xian at such a young age. The younger generation would surpass the older in time. Although such a cultivation was rare, it wasn't enough to put these 3 people in their eyes. At most, they would be surprised to find out what kind of power could nurture these 3 heavenly geniuses. However, they wouldn't pose any threat to them. As for the 4 big men behind them, although their murderous aura was extremely strong, their overall strength was only average. The one with the highest cultivation was at the level of Yu Xian. The other 3 were at the Gold Xian realm. Although they weren't weak at their age, they weren't enough to reach the apex. There were hundreds of people bustling about in the forest. It seemed that every one of them was at the Gold Xian realm. For a small team like this, it could be said that they were extremely precious and rare. But, they were also not enough to enter the eyes of these 3 experts. In fact, a small team consisting of 200 people with the strength of a Gold Xian first level could be said to be one of a kind even among the nations of the world. The level of luxury involved in such a small team had reached an appalling level. In fact, even the major empires might not be able to set up a small team consisting of Gold Xian experts so easily. Therefore, if one were to look at it from an ordinary point of view, the strength that Jun Moxie possessed could absolutely influence the direction of any worldly war. However, in the eyes of the great experts of Shen Xian's level, there wasn't much difference between this force and an ordinary person's. At most, they would be slightly stronger than an ant. This was because the focus of experts at different levels was different. Therefore, in the eyes of these 3 great experts, this valiant team that could move any emperor in the world was only so. The only thing that could truly cause these 3 great experts to be moved and feel strange was that aura just now. What exactly was going on? Young man, let me ask you, was there anyone who stopped here just now and left in a flash? As long as you answer truthfully, you will naturally be rewarded. Do you understand? The short man was called Dongfang Wendao. He was the 3rd brother of the 3. The other 2 were called Dongfang Wenqing and the thin man was called Dongfang Wenjian. The 3 of them were brothers. Dongfang Wendao saw that his 2 brothers were unwilling to speak. His status was the lowest among them. Therefore, he was the one who asked the questions. It was fine if he asked the question, but his attitude was not right. Not only did he not look at them, but he also spoke in a condescending tone as if he was interrogating them. In fact, it wasn't surprising that Dongfang Wendao asked the question in such a way. Although his strength was the weakest among the 3 brothers, he still had the valiant strength of Shen Xian's 2nd level Xian. Facing a few Gold Xian experts like Yu Xian, he felt that he was already giving them face by speaking. Not to mention, he even promised to give them benefits. It would be a great gift if a Spirit Xian expert could receive pointers from a Spirit Xian expert. Even if it was only a few moves, or even just a few words, one could benefit from it for the rest of their lives. Even the eldest and second brother of the Dongfang brothers looked as if it was a matter of course. They didn't think that there was anything wrong with their brother's question. If someone else had asked such a question, they would have probably accepted it. In fact, they would have happily answered the question in great detail. Then, they would have tried their best to curry favor with these three experts. However, it was a pity that he had run into Jun Moxie, the hitman Jun. This guy was unmoved by force or persuasion. Moreover, he wasn't willing to accept any threats. Even if it was a threat from the three Xinxian experts. The former Mo Xia had only vaguely seen his three uncles about 10 years ago. He was only 6 or 7 years old at that time. His original debauchee character had made him forget about those three grown men a long time ago. The current Jun Moxie didn't even have the slightest impression of them after taking over his body. The former Mo Xia had already forgotten about those rubbish thoughts. So, how could he recall them? The former Mo Xia's three uncles were the same. Who would have thought that a naughty brat with a runny nose 10 years ago would have been able to associate him with this handsome, elegant, and talented youth in front of them? They had almost forgotten about him a long time ago. Although they could see that the youth was handsome and vaguely familiar, they couldn't think of anything else. In their minds, their rumored nephew was a wastrel from head to toe. How could he be like this youth in front of them? He was handsome, cute, and had a noble, unsullied temperament. Moreover, the youth in front of them had cultivated to the level of Yu Xian's middle stage. But, their own nephew was rumored to be a debauchee whose meridians had been destroyed. No matter what, it was difficult to associate them with each other. He, little sister Xiao Yi, do you see this? This kind of tree can't be found in our world. In late autumn, the leaves turn silver, but they don't fall. Once spring arrives, they return to their original green color. It's really wonderful. If possible, how about we take 2 of these trees back home and plant them? Jun Moxie didn't seem to hear Dongfang Wendao's question. He smiled faintly, and pointed to a tree as he introduced it to Dugu Xiaoyi. Dongfang Wendao suddenly flew into a rage. The other party doesn't even put me in his eyes? That's too embarrassing for me, the third master Dongfang. He roared, lowered his voice, and asked fiercely, "Kid, I'm asking you a question. Are you deaf? Didn't you hear the third master's question? Are you asking for a beating?" The black-bearded middle-aged man, Dongfang Wenqing, frowned and said, "Third brother, you can ask questions, but don't scare the kid." He was also a little apprehensive in his heart. With this kid's cultivation, he can definitely feel our aura. Not only is he not surprised, but he can also be so calm, and even ignore us. Could it be that he has some powerful backing? Or, is he the descendant of some famous family? But even if he has some powerful backing, he shouldn't be so arrogant when facing 3 Xinxian experts at the same time, right? There's nothing special in this place. Could the super expert who emitted a shocking murderous aura be related to this kid? Or is he hiding in the dark? Dongfang Wendao turned around and grinned, and said, "Big brother, I know, but kids need to be disciplined." Chapter 322. If I don't ask you, who should I ask? I really don't know how your family's elders taught you. Was there anyone here just now? Speak quickly. Dongfang Qidao suppressed his anger. No matter what, the other party was still a junior. Could it be that he, the dignified Xinxian, would really become angry out of humiliation and take the initiative to teach him a lesson? That would really be too undignified. My family's teachings have always been good. There's no need for senior to ask. Asking someone for directions or asking about someone, shouldn't you ask like this? Jun Moxie smiled warmly. At this moment, Jun Moxie had some of the elegance of Li Yuran. He was very elegant and at ease. He smiled and said, "This senior, for example, if this junior wants to ask for directions, I must say this, dare I ask this senior, was there anyone here just now? Please tell me, I will be grateful." After Jun Moxie finished speaking, he then proudly lectured, "This is called good manners. Oh yes, this is how our family's elders taught us." Humph, Shinxian. So what? Even if it's Shinxian, he can't ride on this lord's neck and shit. It's one thing that I can't beat you, but it doesn't mean that I'll admit defeat. Even if I don't directly make a move, I can still disgust you to death. Besides, these three people had a cautious look on their faces. It seemed that they were afraid of something. Jun Moxie thought about the murderous aura that he had released earlier. Since that was the case, how could Jun Moxie not raise the flag? Little bastard. Do you want to die? Dongfang Qidao was furious. Although he was rash, he wasn't an idiot. How could he not hear the sarcasm in Jun Dashao's words? Not to mention the words, our family's elders. Want to die? I'm still young. Even the king of hell might not be willing to accept me. Jun Moxie looked at him coldly. The nephew and uncle pair, who didn't know each other, stared at each other. Enraged, Dongfang Qidao stretched out his hand to grab this little thing. He wanted to catch this little thing and beat him up to vent his anger. That would be considered a small punishment. Unexpectedly, he grabbed empty air. Jun Moxie had already turned behind him. Dongfang Qidao suddenly heard an evil wind behind his head. The sound of a golden blade slicing through the air could be heard. He couldn't help but feel a chill. The spirit Xian third master Dongfang had fallen into a disadvantageous position as soon as the two sides clashed. It was true that he had underestimated his enemy. However, the young master Jun's godly speed was commendable. Fuck! Dongfang Wendao let out a cry of surprise. He was one of the top assassins in the world and was the best at adapting to situations. Although he was shocked, he did not panic and took advantage of the situation to leap forward. Shin Xian's speed was extremely fast. In a single dash, he had crossed a distance of more than 70 feet. He thought that he would definitely be able to avoid the young man's pursuit. However, he did not expect that he could still feel the chill behind him. It was even stronger than before. However, Dongfang third master's movement technique was quite good, and he could still avoid it. This time, he dodged to the right, but the cold air behind him still followed him like a shadow. He dodged to the left again, but the cold air was still there. In that instant, Dongfang Wendao had already consecutively changed 7 types of movement techniques and changed his position dozens of times. However, the chill behind him was like a gangrene that stuck to his bones, increasing instead of decreasing. He didn't even have the time to turn around. Finally, his waist shook, and a cold knife had already pierced into the back of Dongfang third master's waist. However, Dongfang third master was still a strong cultivator of Xinxian. Jun Dashao's sharp counterattack was indeed out of his expectation, but it did not affect him from circulating his mystical qi to protect his body during the battle. Even if the knife that pierced into his body was a divine weapon, the person holding the knife only had the cultivation of Yuxian. No matter what, it could not do anything to him. Not even his skin and flesh were injured. However, in terms of the outcome of the battle, he was defeated, and it was a crushing defeat. Dongfang third master instantly stood rooted to the ground, dumbstruck. With the cultivation of Xinxian, he had long reached a state where he was impervious to heat and cold. However, at this moment, he was sweating profusely, and his clothes were soaked with sweat. The 8 people who were watching from the side were also sweating profusely, especially the black-bearded middle-aged man and the skinny man. Their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. With the eyesight of Duga Xiaoli, Guan Qinghan and the others, they could only vaguely see a ghost-like silhouette dodging from front to back, left to right, and then to the front. It was as if the sky had transformed into tens of hundreds of short silhouettes in an instant, dazzling their eyes. Then, they saw him standing there, completely motionless. As for Jun Moxie, it seemed as if he didn't move at all, as if from the beginning to the end, it was as if the short man was showing off his peerless qin gong. But how sharp were Dongfang Wenqing and Dongfang Wenjian's eyesight? The changes in the field, the two of them clearly saw. How could they not be shocked? This was a pinnacle battle that was enough to prove the life and death of an expert like Shen Xian. They saw third brother unleash his superb qin gong to dodge the kid's sudden slash. However, the white-robed kid's silhouette disappeared very strangely, and the next moment, he appeared behind third brother's head like an illusion, and slashed fiercely. Then, third brother sensed it, and once again dodged to the left, moved to the right, dashed forward, and circled around. In a split second, he changed 7 different qin gong movements, and in an instant, he moved to nearly 40 different positions. But the kid's silhouette always disappeared in a flash, and the next moment, he would always appear behind third brother, like a gangrene attached to the bone. Third brother's peerless movements that he had performed previously were actually useless. And in the end, he was still slashed at the waist. In fact, the kid's slash could have landed on his neck, but with Shen Xian's mystical qi protecting his body, it would not have suffered any damage. But the kid could have slashed his neck, but not his waist. It was obvious that he was being merciful. The third brother's strength was at the second level of the spirit Xian realm. Moreover, the third brother's family had always been known for their agility and agility. This was publicly acknowledged by the entire continent. In fact, no one had ever been able to surpass them. Even the solitary falcon, who was also known for his agility, had to retreat when facing the third brother's family. Solitary eagle was good at speed, but in terms of agility, he was still a notch lower than his family's secret skill. And this kid in front of him was only, at the level of Yu Xian. What kind of concept was this? Wasn't this too terrifying? Wasn't this too terrifying? There was a gap of almost 20 levels between the two of them. Oh my God, this world has gone crazy. Humans have eaten the sun. A mouse has become a cat's bride. This is equivalent to an ordinary ant raping the king of the mystical beasts. What kind of agility is this? Even the leader of the Tian Fa forest does not have such a terrifying speed. How did this kid do it? Who is he? Look at his young age, 16 or 17 years old, and he already has the cultivation of Yu Xian. Then, doesn't this mean that his master is even more powerful? It's fortunate that this youngster's cultivation isn't high enough to break through a spirit Xian's defense. But, wouldn't he be able to easily kill the 3 of us if his cultivation was on par with ours? The opponent doesn't even need to have the same cultivation as Shen Xian, because as long as he is at the peak of Tian Xian's cultivation, he would be able to injure Shen Xian's vital points. Based on this, isn't this result a little too shocking? Silence reigned in the field. Whether it was the 3 Dongfang brothers or Jun Dashao's side, no one spoke a word. After a long time, Dugu Xiaoyi came back to her senses. She looked at the dazed Dongfang Wendao with some admiration, and applauded, "Good qin gong." It's truly ever-changing, wonderful, and unrivaled in this world. Dugu Xiaoyi's praise came from the bottom of her heart. It could even be said that it was a kind of admiration. This short man's appearance was not good, but his qin gong was very handsome. He was able to create a series of illusory figures that didn't disperse for a long time. The little girl was dazzled, and almost fainted. If it wasn't for the fact that the image of the third master Dongfang was a little unjustifiable, the little girl would have directly worshipped him as her master. This was definitely beyond the scope of an ordinary Xian expert by a large margin. Guan Qinghan was also shocked by the opponent's astonishing strength. But, she vaguely felt that the atmosphere was not right. So, she pulled Dugu Xiaoyi's hand, and whispered, "Little sister Xiaoyi, don't talk too much." But, how crisp was the sound of Dugu Xiaoyi's cheering. It was like a big pear that had just come down from the tree, crunching and crunching. Not to mention the few people present at the scene, even those who were far away could have heard it clearly. Dongfang Wendao stood there in a daze. His complexion had already turned somewhat pale. The blow to his confidence from what happened just now was simply unparalleled. The outstanding Qin Gong that he had always been proud of was not even worth mentioning in the eyes of others. Moreover, a mere junior at the level of Yu Xian was able to surpass the speed that he had always been proud of. In fact, he didn't even have the time to turn around. He suddenly felt that all of his previous efforts had become meaningless. It was a very typical case of a sailboat turning upside down in the gutter. But, at this moment, he suddenly heard a sound of cheering. Moreover, it was praising him, "Good Qin Gong. It's truly ever-changing and wonderful. It's enough to be unrivaled in the present age." This sound was so deafening, and it came from the depths of his heart. But, how could a great expert like Shen Xian endure this? It was believed that even if there were 10,000 wonderful brushes, it would still be difficult to describe Third Master Dongfang's feelings at this moment. His deathly pale face instantly turned red. Then, it was visible to the naked eye that the redness spread to his neck, and then to his chest. If one could take off his shoes to take a look, one would definitely discover that even his toes had turned red. Dongfang Wendao only felt dizzy. He was so ashamed that he vomited a mouthful of blood. His body was on the verge of collapsing. He was actually so angry that he vomited blood. What a sincere praise that came from the bottom of his heart. It had directly provoked a powerful Shen Xian expert to the point of vomiting blood. Dongfang Wenqing and Dongfang Wenjian hurriedly jumped over to support him. However, they were stubbornly pushed away by Third Master Dongfang. Dongfang Wendao took a deep breath. He slowly turned around and faced Jun Moxie. The expression in his eyes was incomparably complicated. However, he did not hesitate and said, "You've got guts." "I've lost. I've lost." When these 3 words came out of his mouth, each word was strangely difficult to say. It was as if every word was a heavy mountain to him. But he still said it. Jun Moxie could not help but reveal a sincere expression of admiration in his eyes. A powerful Shen Xian expert losing was not a bad thing. He even admitted defeat to a young man called Yu Xian in front of everyone. What kind of bearing was this? In this Jianghu, where one's reputation was as important as one's life, there were absolutely not many people who could have such an open-minded attitude towards victory and defeat. Today is very gloomy. My cold hasn't recovered. Naturally, this is not what I'm gloomy about. It's just a small cold. It won't affect my updates. At most, I'll just endure a bit more time. Last night at 2:30 in the morning, I was thinking about the plot and writing the outline of Sky Law. Suddenly, someone added me as a friend and verified the message. I have a lot of constructive opinions about the otherworldly evil monarch. I hope you can listen to them. I clicked confirm. And I remember it very clearly. It's someone called Lonely Not Lonely. I won't call him that here. The first sentence was, "I'm reading the pirated version. Because your writing is really too lousy. I really can't stand it anymore. So I came to scold you." Then, I said, "Even if I bought an egg from the mall and it stinks, you should at least scold me, right? I can't say, 'If you have guts, lay an egg and see for yourself.' Even if I went to a restaurant to buy a plate of shredded potatoes, I should at least say a few words if it's not delicious, right? Am I supposed to endure it?" Finally, I said, "You're a eunuch. It's really too lousy. It's indescribably lousy. If you continue writing, I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself and start cursing your family." That night, I was on the blacklist. Oh, I don't have the conversation record anymore. But I sent it to Xia Tian. She should have some there. If you're interested, you can look it up. I'm really angry. From the beginning of this book, I've said, pirated versions can't be banned. I have many siblings who are students and don't have the financial ability to pay. No matter where they are, it's good to be able to read my book and laugh to relieve some of the pressure. I'm even grateful because they let some of my siblings who can't subscribe still stay with me. As a writer, I count on this to make a living. Subscriptions are naturally necessary, but I will never allow any of my siblings to subscribe on an empty stomach. My comment on the bookshelf hasn't been deleted yet. If you're interested, you can go take a look. But, if you read pirated versions, I don't object. If you don't like it, even if you use a sock puppet to clamor in the book reviews section, I haven't objected. At most, I'll just delete it after I read it if it's too vexing for me. But is there a need for you to add me as a friend in the middle of the night to scold me? Should I owe you? Owe you? To put it bluntly, you fucking bought eggs from the mall and shredded potatoes from the restaurant. No matter how fucking rotten or how fucking bad it is, you still fucking spent money. But did you spend money to read this book of mine? You enjoy pirated versions in peace, plagiarizing the fruits of my labor almost every night, and you actually came to my doorstep to scold me? Who the fuck do you think you are? I don't want to scold you, but I really can't help it. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.